Bleach. Studying medicine can't save the spirit world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176 Another graduation. At this moment, Senju Cheng finally understood why many captains showed some joy and anxiety when they left the meeting room. This policy, to put it in a positive way, undoubtedly greatly mobilized the initiative of each squad to strengthen their own strength. However, to put it in a negative way, the strength of the other squads may be greatly enhanced, thus weakening the authority of the first squad. After all, if the squad caught 10 or 8 geniuses, a squad with 10 captain-level Shinigami, almost as powerful as the entire GOTY 13. Wait, suddenly, Senju Cheng remembered what Seireitei said at the beginning, relaxing the policy of many nobles joining the GOTY 13. With these two different policies combined, Captain General Yamamoto intended to further absorb the power of the nobles to supplement the GOTY 13. Senju Cheng's face changed, and he vaguely understood what Yamamoto Seireitei Shifukuni meant. The nobles wantonly occupied the seats of the 13th GOTY squad, which was intended to completely empty the entire 13th GOTY squad and eventually turn it into a GOTY squad directly controlled by the nobles. However, Yamamoto Seireitei Shifukuni might be confident that he could control everything. Therefore, Yamamoto Seireitei Shifukuni planned to give the nobles a break in the short term to make up for the combat power, and in the long term, he wanted to cultivate talented Shinigami in Rukongei, and finally reach a balance. So if you have time, you can also walk around Rukongei, and it will soon be the graduation time for the Shinigami Spiritual Academy this year, and the 4th Division will also need to be supplemented as soon as possible. Seireitei said. Yes, I understand, teacher. Senju Cheng nodded, indicating that he understood. It must be said that in the case that almost most of the GOTY squads are short of combat power, the attention paid to this year's Shinigami Spiritual Academy graduation ceremony can be said to be extremely high. In particular, a brilliant genius named Gynecology appeared in the Mao Academy of Spiritual Arts. He completed 6 years of courses in 1 year and successfully passed the graduation examination. In addition, given Gynecology's age and the strength of his spiritual pressure, almost all Shinigami knew that it was only a matter of time before Gynecology became a captain-level Shinigami. Therefore, when Cheng sent Jinko into the Mao Academy of Spiritual Arts, he saw representatives from the 1st Division to the 13th Division, and even some from the Kidneshu. This lineup, Cheng was a little envious, and it was undoubtedly the treatment of a protagonist. Thinking back then, Senju tightened the adjutant armband on his arm and thought silently. It doesn't seem to be a long-term thing. When I graduated last year, the only captain-level Shinigami who took the initiative to recruit me was Kinpuchi Zaraki, and that was the result of Madarome Ikaku and Ayasuko Yamachica's crazy flattery. Compared with Gynecology's lineup at the moment, it is obviously much worse. However, at this moment, 2 somewhat excited voices sounded behind Senju Cheng. Senju, oh, you are here as expected. Mr. Cheng, long time no see. As Senju Cheng turned his head, it was indeed the combination of the bald man and the flower boy. Then, under Senju Cheng's somewhat strange gaze, Ikaku Madarome turned sideways, twisting his whole body, and asked. Senju, have you noticed any difference in me? Senju Cheng. Mister, have you ever seen a bald strong man twisting his body in front of you, asking if he has changed? This scene shocked Senju Cheng. As for the pure Kotetsu who followed behind Senju Cheng, his eyes were also blank, as if he saw something dirty. In the end, Senju Cheng held his breath for several breaths, but still couldn't say horse fork worm. Can't you see it? Such an obvious change, Senju, you take a closer look for me. However, Ikaku Madarome seemed to be getting more and more anxious, twisting more vigorously. Seeing this eye-catching scene, which was about to attract all the students around, Senju Cheng, who was afraid that his reputation would be ruined by Madarome Ikaku, said helplessly. Ikaku, just say it directly. Madarome Ikaku said angrily. A seat, it's a seat. I'm already the 3rd seat in the 11th Division. Half a month ago, I easily succeeded in that challenge with my strength. After hearing what Madarome Ikaku said, Senju Cheng saw that the sequence of the ranking of the seat officers on the death suit worn by Madarome Ikaku was indeed significantly changed from before. On the other side, Ayasuko Yamachica shook his hair and said in a disapproving tone. I'm the 5th seat now, but the 4th seat in the 11th Division is temporarily vacant. However, at this moment, Kotetsuya spoke weakly. That's not quite right. Vice Captain Senju, I remember that I saw their names on the hospitalization list half a month ago. They were all seriously injured and on the verge of death. They were hospitalized for almost a week under your personal treatment before they were discharged. Suddenly, Ikaku Madarumi and Yamachika Iyashikawa's faces turned red. Makoto Senju turned around and gave Kotetsuya a look, saying, What did I teach you usually? How can you casually publicize the internal information and documents of the 4th Division? Protecting the privacy of patients is the basic quality and responsibility of a doctor. I'm sorry. Kotetsuya quickly bowed and admitted his mistake. Then, Makoto Senju stepped forward and patted Ikaku Madarumi and Yamachika Iyashikawa on the shoulders and said, Ikaku, Yamachika, I know you don't want me to worry. Even when you were carried to the 4th Division and had a little consciousness left, you reminded the doctor who received you not to notify me. It's just that your injuries were too serious. The doctor reported the situation to me without being sure, so I was the one who performed surgery on you while you were unconscious. In an instant, the expressions of Madarumi Ikaku and Iyashikawa Yamachika were completely frozen. However, no matter how anxious you were to improve your seeds, you shouldn't challenge so recklessly. Do you think I will dislike you because your seats are too low? That's absolutely impossible, right? Senju Makoto said earnestly, making Madarumi Ikaku and Iyashikawa Yamachika, who originally wanted to pretend in front of Senju Makoto, almost turned their faces completely red. Undoubtedly, for Madarumi Ikaku and Iyashikawa Yamachika, who had just joined the GOTY 13th Division, challenging the 3rd and 5th seats in a row was still quite a stretch. However, after Senju Makoto was promoted to vice captain, the extremely competitive Madarumi Ikaku and Iyashikawa Yamachika planned to give it a try. Although Madarumi Ikaku and Iyashikawa Yamachika won in the end, they were not the first to arrive and were embarrassedly carried in front of Senju Makoto. Chapter 177 Two Modest Gentlemen. Afterwards, after Senju Makoto deliberately eased the atmosphere, taking advantage of the fact that the graduation ceremony had not yet begun, Senju Makoto, Madarumi Ikaku, Iyashikawa Yamachika, and Kotetsuya once again strolled around the Mao Spiritual Academy, recalling the lost youth from time to time. In particular, Senju Makoto, Madarumi Ikaku, Iyashikawa Yamachika, and Kotetsuya were actually in the same class, and there were quite a lot of topics that they could talk about with each other. In the midst of all the laughter and joy, only Madarumi Ikaku and Iyashikawa Yamachika, who was very competitive, quickly forgot the embarrassment of having the inside story exposed. Soon, as the bell rang to represent the start of the graduation ceremony, Senju Makoto and others entered the large venue. Senju Makoto swept his eyes and saw that the seats of the squad representatives were filled with densely packed people. Among them, Kachika Jinrin and Kikushansui were both present here at the same time, and it was obvious that they also wanted to see the Roomba genius of Ichimura Jin, and even planned to recruit them into their own squad. In addition, Aiden Sasuke attended the graduation ceremony as expected, and when he saw Senju Makoto, he nodded slightly and showed a gentle smile. More importantly, when the Mao Spiritual Academy arranged the seats for the squad representatives, they were arranged in order according to the squad numbers. Therefore, Senju Makoto's seat was next to Aiden Sasuke. Seeing Senju Makoto coming over and preparing to sit down, Aiden Sasuke patted the cushion for Senju Makoto enthusiastically, as if sweeping away some dust, and then invited him warmly. Makoto, come on, sit down. Vice Captain Aiden is too polite. Senju Makoto agreed, and reluctantly sat down with Kotetsuya. Makoto is too polite. There is no need to add the title of position. Just call me Sasuke directly. Aiden Sasuke said with a smile, and his face almost showed good qualities such as gentleness, enthusiasm, humility, and harmlessness. Senju Makoto scratched his head a little embarrassedly and said modestly, How can that be? Vice Captain Aiden's realm and strength are completely different from me, a small vice captain of the 4th Division. Aiden Sasuke smiled and shook his head, pouring tea for Senju Makoto personally, while saying gently, No, only Makoto-kun is not qualified to laugh at himself like this. In my eyes, Makoto-kun is the most unique one. Vice Captain Aiden is too flattering. I still have a lot to learn, Makoto-kun. Your humility and gentleness are really admirable and fascinating. I'm afraid there are many little fans of you in the 4th Division. How can you compare with Vice Captain Aiden? Vice Captain Aizen is famous for his popularity in the Seireitei. For a while, in the eyes of outsiders, the communication between Aizen Sasuke and Senju Makoto was like two humble gentlemen talking. The atmosphere was extremely harmonious, and the highlight was the unity and friendship between different divisions. Even Kotetsu, who was sitting behind Senju Makoto, thought so. The blind Tosen Kaname was the only representative of the 7th Division, and his eyes almost glowed with envy. Perhaps others did not know, but Tosen Kaname was very clear about how arrogant Lord Aizen was. Usually, no matter how humble and gentle Lord Aizen was, he had never taken the initiative to pour tea for other Shinigami. Even Tosen Kaname, who had followed Aizen Sasuke for decades, had never seen such a thing, let alone enjoyed such courtesy. Of course, Tosen Kaname was a blind man, so it was inevitable that he had never seen it. However, what made Tosen Kaname even more angry was that under the courtesy of Lord Aizen, Senju Makoto was so arrogant. After talking for so long, didn't his mouth get dry? He didn't even take a sip of tea, as if he was afraid that Lord Aizen would poison him. In fact, Senju Makoto was really worried that Aizen Sasuke had put something in the tea. After all, the three great scientific research freaks of the Seireitei, Aizen Sasuke, Urahara Kisuke, and Kurosaki Mayuri, Senju Makoto will definitely treat anything that these three guys have come into contact with the most cautious attitude. Otherwise, I'm afraid that they will secretly play with me, and my consciousness has not yet realized why I have become like this. In addition, standing in the front of the many graduates in the audience, and also the shortest in stature, Ichimura Jin, squinted his eyes and stared at Senju Makoto and Aizen Sasuke. With the distance of Ichimura Jin, it is natural that he can't hear the conversation between Senju Makoto and Aizen Sasuke, but it does not prevent Ichimura Jin from guessing. Makoto-kun, his face is a little obscure and unnatural. In contrast, Aizen Sasuke's expression is as usual as he pretends on the surface, and he even has the leisure to pour tea for Makoto-kun, which shows that Aizen Sasuke has the initiative to speak. Could it be that Makoto-kun is asking Aizen Sasuke for something about me, and Aizen Sasuke refuses? He even asks questions that make Makoto-kun feel embarrassed. Damn it. Jin Ichimura, who looks little changed from a year ago and still looks like an 8 or 9-year-old child, is a little annoyed and resentful that he has put Makoto-kun in such an awkward situation. Thinking of this, Jin Ichimura's hand hidden in his sleeve can't help but turn the bracelet again, trying to calm down his emotions as much as possible. The leadership of the Mao Spiritual Academy also completed the whole day's ceremony as complicated and grand as possible. Just when Makoto Senju was dealing with Aizen Sasuke and felt a little sore in his back and heart, and thought that the graduation ceremony was about to end. Next, please invite Makoto Senju, the outstanding graduate of the previous class and the current vice captain of the 4th Division, to speak. The next moment, a thunderous applause woke Makoto Senju up. Makoto Senju. What's going on? I didn't receive such a notice in advance. Normally, the Mao Academy would not dare to force a vice captain to speak on stage without authorization, and would definitely ask and confirm in advance. Subconsciously, Senju Makoto turned his head and looked at Kotetsu behind him. Kotetsu lowered his head in shame and said, "I'm sorry, Vice Captain Senju. Captain Unohana took a document submitted by Mao Academy from me not long ago, and I didn't have time to read it. Maybe the content is related to this." In an instant, Senju Makoto recalled the expression of teacher Unohana that seemed particularly gentle when he went out this morning, and even inexplicably encouraged himself to do his best today. Teacher Unohana, you are worthy of it. However, things have come to this point. Under the gaze of countless eyes, Senju Makoto has no room to retreat. He can only bite the bullet and walk to the front of the stage and look at the many graduates standing densely in front of him. Chapter 178. You are all the newcomers. Senju Makoto's eyes swept down the stage, lingered for a moment on Ichimura Jin, whose expression seemed to fluctuate, and then scanned the circle. Then, Senju Makoto kept urgently drafting various drafts in his mind. This situation obviously came too suddenly, almost catching Senju Makoto off guard, and he did not make any preparations in advance. Senju Makoto even suspected that Unohana teacher deliberately stopped the relevant documents and approved them without Senju Makoto. In addition to pure evil taste, he also wanted to see what Senju Makoto would say in this situation. After all, the more temporary the reaction, the more clearly one can see the essence of one's inner thoughts. Fortunately, after this period of squad management, Senju Makoto would not be stage fright in front of some junior students, and his expression was still gentle and calm. Inspirational chicken soup. Nonsense literature. Humble and low-key. or simply advertising for the fourth squad. 4 different speaking directions kept wandering in Senju Makoto's mind. In just a few breaths, Senju Makoto made a decision in his heart. With many captains, vice-captains, and chair officers at the Seireitei being vacant, this is undoubtedly the best time to place people in the Seireitei and raise its reputation. Makoto Senju is not interested in becoming a captain-level Shinigami at the moment, but he has a certain ambition to influence the attitudes and directions of multiple squads. Then, maybe it's a good idea to start building a new persona at this moment. Makoto Senju pushed his glasses, revealing a gentle smile that seemed impeccable, blowing across the entire arena like a spring breeze, and then spoke. 1 year ago, I stood on the stage, listening to the teachings of the seniors, predecessors and leaders, looking forward to becoming a member of the GOTY. 13 inches the future. Now, 1 year later, I stand on the stage, looking at the rising stars like my juniors. My heart is full of emotion and anticipation, because in you, I seem to see the symbol of the will, belief and blood passed down from generation to generation by the GOTY 13. The future is also in you, and the new future will be carried on your shoulders. You are like rising waves, one after another, rushing forward, rushing into the solemn and sacred Seireitei, bringing vitality and vigor to Seireitei. For a moment, in the gentle and passionate voice of Makoto Senju, the many graduates below felt their spirits shaken, and a sense of mission derived from the inheritance of the Millennium GOTY 13 had fallen on them. Senju Makoto's figure also seemed to be faintly emitting a certain kind of light and greatness. This senior, he, did not publicize his achievements, nor did he indirectly and implicitly show off his status, but instead gently expressed his expectations for them. It was as if a front wave pioneering in the front was looking forward to the back wave to take over and inherit his will and belief and continue to move forward. However, it was obvious that these graduates who had not really experienced the threefold beating of the Seireitei, the nobility, and the hollows did not know that the back wave would mostly only continue to lift the front wave forward until it was powerless and turned into waves. Senju Makoto would not bluntly say the fact of the so-called survivor bias in such an occasion. It is not that any back wave is qualified to become a front wave, like him, who became a vice-captain in just 1 year. However, in terms of the current system of soul society, the residents of Cheng-ge may only die earlier if they become Shinigami, but it is obviously the only way for the entire soul society to rise, and it is even a system that Captain General Yamamoto has finally established. Therefore, instead of letting these graduates give up after a few beatings in the Seireitei, Senju Makoto might as well give them some more encouragement and let them hold on a little longer. Especially, now that there are a lot of vacancies in the positions of the 13th Division of the GOTY, if they hold on a little longer, they might be able to truly escape from the lowest level of the team. Then, Senju Makoto changed his tone and continued in a humble and gentle tone. In fact, I was also a very ordinary person. I had no talent in the sword, fist, and ghost. The only place where I had some talent was in Kido. Hearing this, perhaps the graduates in the audience did not feel anything, but the representatives of the 13th Division of the GOTY felt a sour feeling in their teeth. Good guy, the Kido genius who was praised many times by Unohana Retsu in public, and in just 1 year became the real medical pillar of the 4th Division after Unohana Retsu, and served as the vice-captain with his Kido and medical skills. Is this called a little talent? Senju Makoto pushed his glasses and continued. Besides, my personality is not good at fighting and fighting. My interest is more focused on saving lives, so I spent most of my energy on studying Kido and medical skills. If I remember correctly, the first time I came into contact with Kido was in the middle course of the 3rd grade. Since then, I have been practicing Kido and medical skills for 3.5 years without sleep or food. When many graduates below listened to this with relish, as if they could find many similar experiences in them, Senju Makoto's voice suddenly paused, as if he remembered something that touched him deeply. After that, in the selection of the squad, my ordinary efforts were recognized and I successfully joined the 4th squad, and under the guidance of Captain Unohana, I worked hard and continued to study every day. Only then did I gain the appreciation of Captain Unohana in my steady growth and serve as the vice-captain. Speaking of this, Senju Makoto's eyes seemed to be full of expectation. My fellow juniors, I would also like to tell you to focus as much energy as possible on improving one thing, and the thing should be in line with your own will, hobbies, and talents. My fellow juniors, I am waiting for the opportunity to fight alongside you in Jinglum time, and I am also looking forward to some of you who are interested in Uodeo and medical skills to join the 4th Division. You don't have to worry about the lack of Uodeo and medical skills. The 4th Division has a complete training and teaching system, and if you have any questions, we can discuss them with each other. Finally, Senju Makoto's face revealed a gentle smile full of infectiousness. Among the graduates, especially in the eyes of some junior girls, there was a feeling that their favorability was directly pierced. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 179. Ichimura Jin's Squad Choice. Senior, gentle, humble, vice captain, handsome, young. The notes attached to Senju Makoto one by one almost made many newly graduated schoolgirls unable to resist at all. Subconsciously, these schoolgirls compared their classmates with Senju Makoto. There is no doubt that most of the Shinigami are warlike, and the Shinigami who came from the Mao Academy of Spiritual Arts, because they mastered powerful power in a short period of time, formed a substantial class rise, and a considerable number of them would form arrogant personalities. In addition, Senju Makoto's appearance and temperament are rare in the entire Seireitei, not to mention the graduates of that year. Comparing them one by one, in the eyes of those schoolgirls, it is undoubtedly a true dimensionality reduction attack. Master Senju. Senior Makoto, I want to join the 4th Division. Can you give me some guidance? For a moment, as Makoto Senju finished his speech, the graduates below burst into unprecedented applause, and even a considerable number of excited shouts. As Makoto Senju returned to his seat, Aiden Sosab gently applauded Makoto Senju. What a wonderful speech. Makoto is still as gentle and humble as ever, and he is also full of care for the juniors. Vice Captain Aizen, you are too kind. I just want to encourage the juniors and try to get more applications for the 4th Division to join this time. After all, the 4th Division is seriously short of manpower now. Makoto Senju answered modestly. Then, Makoto Senju felt the corner of his clothes being pulled, and turned his head to look behind him. It was Kotetsuin's little finger that was carefully pulling Makoto Senju's death suit. And Kotetsuin felt the doubtful gaze of Senju Makoto, and tried to muster up her courage, her face a little more rosy, and said, Vice Captain Senju is so amazing, the speech just now was really wonderful. It must be said that, feeling the admiring eyes of Kotetsuin that were almost overflowing, Senju Makoto's heart actually subconsciously emerged a little joy. Then, Senju Makoto smiled gently. Obviously, Senju Makoto and Kotetsuin are of similar height and age, but Senju Makoto gently touched Kotetsuin's beautiful and unique silver grey hair as if he were a senior, and said gently, Yongin is also great. In my mind, Yongin is the real wave of the future, and even the position of vice captain may not be the end of Yongin. Listening to the words of encouragement that seemed to contain no falsehood, and even without any worry that he would surpass vice captain Senju's expectations, Kotetsuin felt his eyes warm. I have never been needed like this, I have never been recognized like this, and I have never been expected like this. My dream is to become the 3rd vice captain of Senju. Kotetsuin answered Senju Makoto in an extremely weak voice, or rather, Kotetsuin, who was quite timid, was just telling himself. In this regard, Senju Makoto's smile became even bigger. In the 4th Division, Unohana Retsu's position is undoubtedly deeply rooted, but this time he was secretly stabbed in the back by Unohana teacher. Senju Makoto also understood that he had to secretly loosen the soil for Unohana teacher and bury his own things. At least, the next time Unohana Retsu secretly pits him like this, Senju Makoto can ensure that Kotetsuin will completely fall to him. Especially now that the 4th Division has a serious vacancy, it has given Senju Makoto an excellent opportunity to ensure Senju Makoto's right to speak in the 4th Division. Sitting next to Senju Makoto, Aiden Sosak's eyes flashed with a hint of interest as he watched Senju Makoto's smile that seemed to reveal joy and tenderness. It seems that Makoto-kun is enjoying cultivating a deputy who admires and worships him. It seems quite interesting. Maybe I can find a suitable target to try and experience it when I have time, and feel the joy that Makoto-kun feels. Kokushansui, who came to attend this graduation ceremony on purpose, looked at the female graduates who represented youthful vitality cheering for Senju Makoto, and his expression became a little jealous. Although Kokushansui has already decided on the candidate for his next vice captain. However, it is rare for Kokushansui to not have a vice captain to supervise him now, and it is a good time for him to let go. Originally, Kokushansui expected that as the captain attended the graduation ceremony, with his handsome appearance and vicissitudes of life, he would definitely attract a lot of attention. I didn't expect it, Kakushansua smacked his lips and rubbed his chin full of stubble. Looking at Senju Makoto's outstanding appearance and temperament, he couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Vice Captain Senju, you are the weight behind, and you were going to beat me to death after Senju Makoto's speech. The rest of the speeches seemed a bit boring in the eyes of the graduates. Soon, with the compass and graduation ceremony completely over, the next thing was the real focus, that is, the graduates' choice of squad. Then, representatives of each squad spoke one by one, stating the characteristics of their squad and the requirements for the team members. As the squad selection really began, almost all the squad representatives' eyes were locked on Ichimura Jin, the most dazzling and eye-catching of this class. Or in other words, the genius Ichimura Jin who graduated early in just 1 year. Countless people are also curious about which squad Ichimura Jin, who is known as a genius once in hundreds of years, will choose to join. Under the gazes of many people, Jin Ichimura still had that fake smile on his face, and his eyes were squinting so that people couldn't see clearly, emitting a bit of coldness. Then, Jin Ichimura slowly walked forward, and his target was the direction of Makoto Senju. This scene also shocked everyone present. Could it be that as a genius, Jin Ichimura would choose the 4th division of the healing squad? Are you kidding? Almost subconsciously, everyone had this thought in their hearts. However, Jin Ichimura stood in front of Makoto Senju. For a moment, even Yuen Totetsu, who was already sitting next to Makoto Senju and preparing to register, had a little more hope in his eyes. Although the 4th division is the healing division, if such a genius is recruited, it will undoubtedly greatly enrich the strength of the 4th division. Chapter 180 Self-Sacrifice Ichimura Jin. However, doubt flashed through Senju Makoto's heart. According to Senju Makoto's understanding of Ichimura Jin's choice would definitely be Aizen Sosuk. Moreover, the reason why Ichimura Jin practiced so hard in the past year and graduated in just 1 year was undoubtedly to show his value to Aizen Sosuk. However, even if Ichimura Jin really changed his mind, Senju Makoto would not feel regretful. With Ichimura Jin's talent, it was obviously a bit of a waste to just serve as an undercover agent beside Aizen Sosuk. And Senju Makoto, who knew that Aizen Sosuk already knew about his acquaintance with Ichimura Jin, did not deliberately alienate Ichimura Jin, but greeted him gently and warmly. Long time no see, Jin. However, facing Senju Makoto's greeting, Ichimura Jin slightly opened his eyelids, just like a venomous snake slowly showing its fangs, and said viciously, Senju Makoto, don't be so hypocritical in front of me. As early as when you gave me that humiliating treatment in Rukongai, I swore that I would kill you sooner or later. For a moment, as Ichimura Jin's speech sounded, countless eyes fell into astonishment. No one expected that Ichimura Jin would openly provoke Senju Makoto, who was in the limelight, in such an occasion, and even showed hatred and hostility without concealing it. The next moment, Kotetsu Uin, who usually behaved timidly and modestly in front of Senju Makoto, suddenly stood up, blocked in front of Senju Makoto, glared at Ichimura Jin and shouted, Ichimura Jin, please pay attention to your words, do you know what you are talking about? Then, among the many onlookers around, a considerable number of graduates who were completely fans of Senju Makoto also spoke up to denounce Ichimura Jin. Especially Ichimura Jin as a special case who graduated early. His lone talent and independent personality made him quite jealous and resented in the Mao Spiritual Academy. Arrogant, how can you challenge Senju's map? Hurry up and apologize to Vice Captain Senju. Damn it, how can Ichimura Jin be so arrogant? However, Ichimura Jin seemed to be deaf to the condemnation of those graduates. He glanced at Kotetsu Uin, then fell on Senju Makoto again and said, Don't think I don't know your thoughts. It's nothing more than that you have noticed my talent, so you are trying to calm my hostility in some way. Are you afraid of my revenge and talent, right, Senju Makoto? Senju Makoto frowned, gently patted the shoulder of Kotetsu Uin, who almost couldn't help but draw his sword, motioned Kotetsu Uin to sit down, and then spoke. Jin, I don't know what misunderstandings have arisen between you and me, but whether it's the initial treatment or the subsequent communication with you, I have always regarded you as a friend. The fingers of Jin Ichimura, who was constantly turning the bracelet in his sleeves, trembled suddenly, but his eyes seemed to be getting colder and colder, and he said with disdain, HMPH, do you think I will believe it? Sooner or later, I will let you know how wrong it is to despise me. Jin, you, however, Jin Ichimura did not give Makoto Senju a chance to speak. Without waiting for Makoto Senju to finish, Jin Ichimura turned away with his sleeves, and his footsteps turned to Aizen Sasuke, who was next to Makoto Senju, as if everything he did was to take revenge on Makoto Senju. First, he mocked Makoto Senju, and then joined other squads in front of Makoto Senju to express his disdainful attitude. In front of Aizen Sasuke, Jin Ichimura completely restored his usual cold and unfathomable expression, and spoke calmly. Vice Captain Aizen, I want to apply to join the 5th Division. Seeing this, Aizen Sasuke first looked at Senju Makoto with an apologetic look, and explained modestly. Makoto, I'm sorry, the 5th Division does need to be supplemented now, but I will definitely teach Ichimura Jin a lesson afterwards, and then take Ichimura Jin to apologize to Makoto. Senju Makoto seemed to sigh helplessly, and then said. Then I'll trouble Vice Captain Aizen. There seems to be some misunderstanding between Jin and me. If there is a chance, I will visit Vice Captain Aizen to explain. After a pause, Senju Makoto continued. Jin is actually a very good kid, but his ideas may be a little extreme. I hope Vice Captain Aizen will spend more time and patience. Undoubtedly, in this series of contradictions, Senju Makoto's gentle and noble demeanor was completely set off. Moreover, it seemed that the long-renowned genius Ichimura Jin was quite narrow-minded, and even the reason for his intention to retaliate against Senju Makoto seemed to be just a trivial matter. For a time, in the eyes of many graduates and squad representatives, Senju Makoto's image became more and more positive. Even when facing hostile and inferior people, Senju Makoto still treated them so gently and patiently, and even took the initiative to ask other squad vice captains to take good care of Ichimura Jin. Even some emotional graduates looked at Senju Makoto, and they were moved to tears like some brainless fans, and completely put themselves into certain specific angles to feel Senju Makoto's gentleness. After Ichimura Jin's squad selection was completed, the other graduate squad selections also began. Among them, unlike the previous years, the number of graduates flocking to the 4th squad this time has skyrocketed by more than 10 times compared to the past. What made Kotetsuin feel a little uncomfortable was that more than 95% of them were female graduates. Moreover, these female graduates almost stared at Senju Makoto, and Kotetsuin saw the slightly familiar admiration in their eyes, which made Kotetsuin feel threatened. Are they coming for the 4th Division? These guys are definitely coming for Vice Captain Senju. Won't I be beaten to death by the back wave? Thinking of this, Kotetsuin felt a sense of urgency in his heart. After all, even if these junior girls are only 1 year younger than Kotetsuin, they still represent more youthful vitality. If he doesn't work hard, his position next to Vice Captain Senju will definitely be shaken, right? However, Senju Makoto was not attracted by the group of junior girls who surrounded him, but looked in the direction of Ichimura Jin. Feeling the hesitation and guilt of Ichimura Jin, who was still turning the bracelet, Senju Makoto knew that Ichimura Jin's deliberate performance just now was probably to discredit himself and distance himself from himself, probably to avoid being targeted by Aizen Sasuke. Ichimura Jin's tendency to sacrifice himself is really hard to change. Senju Makoto said so in his heart, but he couldn't help but feel a little touched by Ichimura Jin's behavior. Chapter 181 Yamada Hanatem. In Senju Makoto's opinion, Ichimura Jin's talent and gift are beyond doubt, and his ability to endure is even more terrifying. Under that expression that seems to be impossible to see through, it seems that there are always fangs that can bite people. But on the other hand, it is undeniable that Ichimura Jin is extremely loyal and righteous. At this point, Senju Makoto has clearly felt that Ichimura Jin values him. When Ichimura Jin, who is paranoid and willing to sacrifice himself for the person he cherishes, does not hesitate to defile himself in order to protect Senju Makoto, it is enough to illustrate the status of Senju Makoto in Ichimura Jin's heart. However, soon, Senju Makoto retracted his gaze to avoid being noticed by Aizen Sasuke. Since Ichimura Jin has chosen this path and made this sacrifice, Senju Makoto can only cooperate with Ichimura Jin's performance as much as possible, although he is helpless. Perhaps, if there is time, we can try to improve the souls of Jin Ichimura and Ranjai Matsumoto. This will be a problem after all. This thought flashed through Senju Makoto's mind, and then his face showed a gentle smile like a spring breeze, and he patiently confirmed and understood the graduates who came to apply for the team one by one. Junior Sister Seireitei, thank you for choosing the 4th Division. Can you answer the following questions? 168, 50, 84, 61, 90, can stay up late, can endure hardships, can work hard and endure floods? No, that's not what I'm asking. F. No, Senju Cheng looked at the junior sister Seireitei with a burning look in front of him, and simply lowered his head to look at the information she handed over, and then verified her situation one by one. You passed, Seireitei Jr. Yabin, please help Seireitei Jr. register. Next, before Senju Cheng finished shouting, a familiar face that looked like a weak and submissive appeared in front of Senju Cheng. Makoto-kun. Senju Cheng looked up and was slightly stunned. He looked at the timid and gentle face in front of him, and the boy's eyes and corners of the eyes were naturally drooping slightly. Hanataro, did you graduate early this year? Senju Cheng asked with a smile. Surprisingly, the person who appeared in front of Senju Cheng at this moment was Senju Cheng's former junior and friend, and also Yamada-san Yuki's younger brother Yamada Hanataro. And in stark contrast to Yamada-san Yuki's mean and poisonous style, Yamada Hanataro was the most gentle person that Senju Cheng had ever seen, and he even looked weak and cowardly. At least, so far, although Yamada Hanataro was occasionally bullied in the Mao Spiritual Academy, he never got angry because of it. Of course, in fact, Senju Cheng knew that Yamada Hanataro was not lacking in the necessary courage. It was just that the reason why he had such a personality was probably because he had suffered from the poisonous tongue of Yamada-san Yuki since he was a child, so he didn't care about many trivial matters. Yes, Makoto, this is my application information for joining the team. Yamada Hanataro carefully handed over the information in his hands with both hands, and his eyes showed a bit of restraint and caution. However, Senju Cheng handed the information to Kotetsuin for registration without even looking at it, and said, "No need, I have great trust in Hanataro's Kido and medical skills." In fact, the most important reason why Senju Cheng and Yamada Hanataro could become friends was that they were both rare people in the Shinigami Spiritual Academy who were truly interested in Kido and medical skills. Thank you, Yamada Hanataro said a little nervously. Senju Cheng supported his chin with one hand, showing a smile that made the female graduates who lined up in a long line behind Yamada Hanataro a little crazy, and said gently, "Don't act like that in front of me, kid. I'm going to set up a small office in the 4th Division to help with team affairs. Since Hanataro is graduating this year, why don't you join us? I'll leave the management and training of graduates and new students you." Yamada Hanataro's eyes, which seemed to be a little sleepy, widened a little, and he waved his hands repeatedly, saying, "No, Makoto, I'm not good at dealing with people, and no one will listen to me. That's why you need to practice this ability more." After a pause, Makoto Senju, who knew Yamada Hanataro's extremely unconfident personality, made the decision directly. "It's decided." Yamada Hanataro moved his lips, bowed to Makoto Senju to express his gratitude, and felt that nothing seemed to have changed. Although Makoto had become the vice captain, he was still the same Makoto, who would make all kinds of correct decisions for the unconfident and hesitant Makoto, and he only needed to follow his instructions. Then, as if to train Yamada Hanataro's ability, Senju Makoto directly asked Yamada Hanataro to sit next to him, and asked Yamada Hanataro to ask the graduates who came to join the 4th Division on his behalf. Senju Makoto occasionally pointed out Yamada Hanataro's words and took the lead in establishing the majesty of Yamada Hanataro in front of this batch of graduates. At this moment, Yamada Hanataro was extremely moved, and he vowed in his heart that he must do everything to repay Makoto's appreciation. However, what Yamada Hanataro didn't know was that his appearance made Senju Makoto slightly relieved. After all, the current 4th Division is extremely short of manpower, especially a large number of seats are vacant, resulting in that even with the assistance of Kotetsuin and Yokiriza, Senju Makoto still has a lot of things to do. In addition, Senju Makoto always insists on daily treatment, and by the way, he looks for suitable targets to integrate into the forest seed. In this case, the addition of a large number of graduates will not mean a replenishment of manpower in the short term, but will make Senju Makoto more busy. Unlike the other squads that are mostly fighting, the 4th squad is a highly professional squad. It takes a long time for graduates to adapt, train, and teach. Therefore, if Hanataro Yamada does not appear, Makoto Senju will still have to worry about how to deal with the many graduate training-related matters. And Hanataro Yamada's professional ability is undoubtedly trustworthy. His character may be a little timid and unconfident, but he is definitely plug-and-play, and a trustworthy little helper who strictly enforces his own requirements. Here, Makoto Senju couldn't help but sigh again from the bottom of his heart. "Vice Captain Yamada, thank you for having you, not only your wife, but also your brother." Of course, Makoto Senju does intend to train Hanataro Yamada. As long as Hanatem Yamada is more confident, he will definitely become one of the important pillars of the 4th squad. Chapter 182 Teacher, I have an idea. As Yamada Hanatem gradually entered the state, Senju Cheng completely relaxed, and even had the leisure to look at the many graduates in front of him from time to time. However, what made Senju Cheng feel a little regretful was that the death suit did not seem to be a kind of clothing that could highlight the graceful figure. The original intention of the death suit was only for fighting. Therefore, except for the mature version of Matsumoto Rangiku, who was a bug, and the majestic figure completely broke through the boundaries and broke through the restraints of the death suit, showing a part of the proper posture, the rest of the female Shinigami wearing the death suit is undoubtedly a kind of sealing restraint. However, the 4th Division has no responsibility to fight at all, so the death suit is indeed a bit redundant for the 4th Division. More importantly, the color of the death suit is dark, which does not meet the daily needs of the treatment division, and it is also a heavy color for patients. Perhaps, after the 4th Division slowly stabilizes, we can try to promote white uniforms that are more suitable for doctors. Senju Cheng stroked his chin, and his eyes gradually brightened. Undoubtedly, this is also one of the areas that Senju Cheng thinks the 4th Division needs to improve. This is not only for the comfort of the team members, but more from the perspective of the patients. Absolutely, Senju Cheng has absolutely no selfish motives in this, and it is not because he wants to see how Unohana-retsu-sensei would look when wearing that kind of uniform. Thinking of this, Senju Cheng felt his throat was a little dry, and subconsciously took the cup of tea in front of him and took a sip. The next moment, as the sip of tea moistened his throat, Senju Cheng's expression froze slightly, and his eyes turned. Suddenly, he saw Aizen Sasuke sitting next to him, looking at Senju Cheng with a smile. That cup of tea was also poured by Aizen Sasuke for Senju Cheng himself before. Then, Aizen Sasuke picked up the tea set next to him and filled it for Senju Cheng again, and asked gently, "Mr. Cheng, this is the good tea Captain Hirako left behind. Isn't it good?" "Not bad," Senju Cheng's mouth twitched, and he responded. His attention was completely immersed in his own spirit body with the ability of spiritual control, and then, he forcibly decomposed the mouthful of tea into mist and discharged it. Because Senju Cheng himself likes to leave things in other people's bodies, in order to avoid accidents, Senju Cheng will never leave a drop of Aizen Sasuke's things in his body. And there were no waves in the selection of joining the team afterwards. Aizen Sasuke did not make any trouble, and sent 2 or 3 Achaques to the scene to wipe out the fresh blood of the new class of the Seireitei. Undoubtedly, in this graduation ceremony, the 4th Division became the biggest winner beyond everyone's expectations, and almost took away more than 1/3 of the graduates of this class. You know, in the past, the 4th Division often had only about 10 members, and sometimes only a few. This time the number has increased by more than 10 times. When Makoto Senju brought this large group of graduates back to the 4th Division, even Unohana-retsu looked a little stunned. Perhaps, it was a bit exaggerated that Yamada-san as Yoke had not recruited so many new people in the past 100 years, but Makoto Senju went out and brought back so many people, which was completely beyond Unohana-retsu's expectations. Unohana-retsu looked at Makoto Senju who came over to report and couldn't help asking, "Makoto, how did you manage to recruit so many people?" Of course, it was to publicize the various favorable conditions of the 4th Division, Unohana teacher's status in the Seireitei, and his nobleness as a doctor. After a pause, Makoto Senju said casually while paying attention to Unohana-retsu's expression, "By the way, Mr. Unohana, today I heard a graduate talk about an interesting problem, that is, the 4th Division does not need to fight, and the Death Hagura seems to be useless. I thought about it carefully, and it seems to make some sense. The Black Death Hagura is not suitable for treatment. Perhaps the 4th Division can promote some more professional work clothes." Unohana-retsu asked without paying too much attention. "What do you think?" Makoto Senju pondered for a moment, as if thinking, and then answered, "One thing, maybe we can refer to the clothes of some medical institutions in the world. In this case, Makoto will design it first." Unohana-retsu thought it was a trivial matter and did not care too much about it. In addition, it is reasonable for Makoto Senju to make suggestions that are beneficial to the 4th Division. And the more headache for Unohana-retsu now is undoubtedly about the arrangement of the more than 100 graduates in front of him. You know, the number of regular members of the 4th Division is not much more than these graduates, and the funeral home can't accommodate more than 100 graduates at all. Although Unohana Retsu has gradually become a hands-off boss, leaving most of the team affairs to Senju Makoto, it is obviously a difficult problem to arrange these more than 100 graduates. Subconsciously, Unohana Retsu glanced at Senju Makoto and asked, "Makoto, do you have any ideas about the arrangement of these new team members?" In response, Senju Makoto, who had prepared a draft in advance, spoke up. "Unohana teacher, although these graduates have been screened to a certain extent, there is no doubt that most of them are still quite unsatisfactory in Kido and medical skills. Without adequate training, it is difficult for them to really play a role." Unohana Retsu nodded, and he was quite clear about this situation. After all, there are not many students in the Shinem Spiritual Academy who really go to learn Kido. The combat-oriented Kwanzagui is the real mainstream. It is precisely because of this that in the past, Yamada-san Yoke was able to recruit very few new members every year. First, the 4th division is not attractive. Second, there are not many students who are good at and interested in Kido. Teacher Unohana, I have an idea. Maybe we can unify the management, but we should adopt one-on-one training for the new teachers and give regular lectures and training. Makoto Senju said slowly. Unohana Retsu's eyes lit up when he heard this, and said, "Makoto, tell me more about it." Then, Makoto Senju simply improved the training system in his memory of his previous life, and explained this model to Unohana Retsu in detail. Obviously, regardless of the pros and cons of this method, it is undoubtedly the fastest way to quickly train qualified doctors while slightly alleviating the pressure on manpower and not interfering with the existing medical order. Unohana Retsu thought for a while, and said with a bit of approval in his eyes when looking at Makoto Senju, "Makoto, if that's the case, then this matter will be left to you to arrange." Chapter 183 Lily Ranger. With the permission of Unohana Retsu, who was gradually going further and further in the hands-off boss, and with the prestige of Makoto Senju in the 4th division, the implementation of this matter is almost not difficult at all. Even Makoto Senju set an example by taking the initiative to claim Yamada Hanateum, who seemed to be difficult to teach, and taught him in person. In this way, the rest of the 4th division members could not raise any objections. And for the sake of funness, Makoto Senju directly adopted a lottery method, allowing each member of the 4th division to claim a newbie back. Afterwards, Makoto Senju also formulated a series of assessment indicators and learning progress requirements for the newbies, and the team members responsible for teaching also had corresponding rewards and punishments. It must be said that under the treatment of Makoto Senju, who retained a certain degree of thinking from his previous life, although there were some elements of oppression and black heart, the operating efficiency of the entire 4th division was significantly improved. In this way, Unohana Retsu was satisfied, Makoto Senju was comfortable, the atmosphere of the 4th division gradually returned to being lively and busy under this huge injection of fresh blood. And as the 4th division gradually got on the right track, before the new enrollment of the Mao Spiritual Academy was about to begin, Senju Makoto accidentally met Aizen Sasuke and Ichimura-jin again in the Seireitei. At this moment, in less than a few months, Ichimura-jin has become the 3rd seat of the 5th division. As for the original 3rd seat of the 5th division, died, was devoured by the hollow, and not even a corpse was left, and the witnesses included the 5th division vice-captain Aizen Sasuke and more than a dozen team members. It was also during this meeting that Senju Makoto, who had been busy for several months, remembered a very important thing Matsumoto Ranger. Before, when Ichimura-jin was still in Rukongei, he lived with Matsumoto Ranger. Now, with Ichimura-jin completely lurking beside Aizen Sasuke, Ichimura-jin has almost no chance to contact Matsumoto Ranger, let alone take care of Matsumoto Ranger. Thinking of this, Senju Makoto hurried to Rukongei. However, in the place where Matsumoto Ranger and Ichimura-jin originally lived, Senju Makoto did not find Matsumoto Ranger. Instead, this somewhat dilapidated house looked like no one had lived there for several months. Where is she? At this moment, Senju Makoto could not help but feel a little numb. That little orange-haired lily, wouldn't she be caught and forced to fish for goldfish? Although Ichimura-jin had never asked Senju Makoto to take care of Matsumoto Ranger, and even as far as Senju Makoto knew, after Ichimura-jin joined the Mao Spiritual Academy, he seemed to be deliberately distancing himself from Matsumoto Ranger. However, Senju Makoto could not help but worry that Matsumoto Ranger had some accidents. After all, Rukongei has never been a peaceful place. On the contrary, the more remote the neighborhood, the more serious the chaos. A cute little lily is undoubtedly very likely to get into trouble. Then, Senju Cheng quickly searched around the area and asked some residents of Rukongei, and they undoubtedly got the news that they had not seen Matsumoto Rangiku for several months. As for the whereabouts of Matsumoto Rangiku, obviously, most of the residents of Rukongei will not pay attention to something that has nothing to do with them. At this moment, Senju Cheng deeply realized how difficult it is to find a specific person in the vast and boundless Rukongei. It is for this reason that after Captain Yamamoto implemented many policies, Senju Cheng did not have the idea of finding some future captains and vice captains in the original trajectory, and then gathering them and slowly cultivating them. However, that is simply unrealistic. After all, Rukongei is too big. However, fortunately, Senju Cheng had left the forest seed in Matsumoto Rangiku's body before, so he could only try to go to the location of the nearest forest seed in Rukongei. Unfortunately, no. Instead, it was Omida Kichiyo, who was holding a pink and cute baby, strolling in Rukongei under many guards. After seeing the appearance of Senju Cheng, the fat boy Omida Kichiyo almost subconsciously clamped his thighs, holding the baby, and burst out with a flash step that made Senju Cheng look sideways, and instantly disappeared in front of Senju Cheng. Even the many guards who had followed Omida Kichiyo were stunned, and then hurriedly ran towards Omida Kichiyo. "Master, wait for us. Master, what's wrong with you? Is there an enemy?" Seeing this scene, Senju Cheng's mouth twitched slightly. Is Omida Kichiyo really like this? Didn't I just perform 2 operations on you, and according to the wishes of Omida Kichiyo's father, Omida Kishin, I completed a little bit of transformation. Senju Cheng believed that his surgical process was already quite perfect, and the effect was also first class. Alas, the doctor-patient relationship now. Senju Cheng sighed helplessly again, and then went to the coordinates of Forest Seed in another direction of Rukongei. Originally, Senju Cheng could still distinguish different people by the amount of spiritual power absorbed by different forest seeds. However, as the number of seeds sown by Senju Cheng was too large, it was obvious that except for some who had multiple contacts or were at the captain or vice captain level, it was difficult for the other Senju Cheng to distinguish who was with whom. After Senju Cheng searched back and forth for several targets that had sown seeds, Senju Cheng finally found the real owner. At this moment, Matsumoto Rangiku, who was wearing tattered clothes and looked a little dirty, was hiding under the table of a vendor, secretly looking for an opportunity to get herself something to eat. From Matsumoto Rangiku's eyes, Senju Cheng could see that Matsumoto Rangiku, the little orange-haired lily, had probably been hungry for quite some time. Matsumoto Rangiku's expression at the moment was quite nervous. While smelling the fragrance from above, she nervously swallowed her saliva and carefully observed the actions of the vendor, fearing that opportunity. The next moment, a bun seemed to accidentally fall to the ground under the touch of the vendor, which made Matsumoto Rangiku nervous, fearing that the vendor would find her hiding underneath when he bent down to pick it up. However, the vendor seemed to be busy and didn't pay any attention to the bun. This made Matsumoto Rangiku's eyes gradually reveal a bit of impulse, and her palm often reached out to the bun. However, when Matsumoto Rangiku's palm was about to touch the bun, suddenly, Matsumoto Rangiku's slender wrist was held, which made Matsumoto Rangiku's whole body stiff, and her whole body was completely tense. However, unlike the expected angry scolding, a gentle voice sounded. "Rangiku, that bun is dirty, I'll treat you to something else." Chapter 184 The so-called 2A Run. This voice, Matsumoto Rangiku's eyes froze, and then she looked along the arm that was holding her wrist, and a face that was as gentle as the intersection of spring breeze and warm sun appeared in front of her. Senju Cheng. This man, Matsumoto Rangiku, obviously still had some impression. Once, Jin told her that Senju Cheng was the man who saved Matsumoto Rangiku's life, and that she should always remember that kindness in her heart and repay that life-saving grace in the future. In addition, that man had also specially visited Ichimura Jin and herself, and left a lot of money, which greatly improved the precarious lives of Ichimura Jin and Matsumoto Rangiku. However, until Jin disappeared, everything seemed so beautiful. Makoto-kun. Matsumoto Rangiku said subconsciously, and then almost instinctively covered her face with her other hand, and hid deeper under the table. It was so rude, so embarrassing. What on earth was she doing? She actually let Makoto-kun, her benefactor, see her such a despicable side. Matsumoto Rangiku's eyes almost instantly turned red, and she didn't dare to look up at Senju Cheng. The movement between Senju Cheng and Matsumoto Rangiku also made the busy vendor realize something. He squatted down suddenly and found the presence of Matsumoto Ranjaiku. "You bastard, you were planning to hide here and steal things again. I will kill you today and bury you in the stinking ditch." In an instant, the vendor, who was already quite big and strong, shouted angrily, and subconsciously raised his other hand to hit Matsumoto Ranjaiku's head with a rolling pin as thick as his forearm. Just as Matsumoto Ranjaiku looked a little terrified, and the rolling pin was about to hit her forehead, an arm blocked Matsumoto Ranjaiku's eyes, and it really blocked that hit. Bang! A dull sound sounded on Senju Makoto's arm. At this moment, the vendor turned his head to look at Senju Makoto, and saw the death suit on Senju Makoto's body, and his face turned pale. Actively attacking the death gods, even if the death gods draw their swords and kill them on the spot, there will be absolutely no problem. However, there was no trace of anger on Senju Makoto's face. Instead, he took out Matsumoto Ranjaiku, who was hiding under the table, and put her on the ground. "Yes, I'm sorry, Makoto, are you okay?" "It's all because of me." Matsumoto Ranjaiku was panicking and at a loss at this moment. She wanted to see Senju Makoto's arm, but she was afraid that she would dirty Senju Makoto's death suit. But the next moment, Senju Makoto's worn palm covered Matsumoto Ranjaiku's head, rubbed Matsumoto Ranjaiku's hair, then squatted down, and said with a gentle and bright smile, "Of course I'll be fine, but you made me look for you for a long time, but fortunately, I finally found you." Then, Senju Makoto turned his head to look at the vendor and said, "I'm sorry, my little sister has been running around without telling me. Has she caused you any loss during this period? I can compensate you." Matsumoto Ranjaiku, who had been quite flustered and hesitant since Senju Makoto appeared, looked up at Senju Makoto in disbelief. My little sister." Matsumoto Ranjaiku instinctively pinched the corner of the dirty and tattered clothes, feeling indescribably touched and ashamed. The vendor who had just hit Senju Makoto with a stick, how could he dare to ask Senju Makoto for money at this moment, and almost wanted to kneel down and beg Senju Makoto to leave. In response, Senju Makoto, who actually did not think that he was superior to the residents of Rukongei, had no choice but to take out 300 coins and put them on the table, and then took Matsumoto Ranjaiku away. The vendor waited until Senju Makoto walked away and confirmed that he had no intention of turning back, then carefully took the 300 coins and put them in his pocket, his eyes revealing a little puzzlement. That god of death seems to be different from the usual god of death. And Makoto Senju led the nervous and flustered Ranjaiku Matsumoto all the way to an empty corner nearby, then he let go of her hand and asked softly, "Ranjaiku, I've been looking for you for a long time, and I almost thought I couldn't find you." This was indeed the case, and Makoto Senju was not exaggerating at all. If there were no forest seeds, it would be almost impossible to find Ranjaiku Matsumoto in the vast area of Rukongei. Looking at Makoto Senju, who looked concerned about her, Ranjaiku Matsumoto subconsciously apologized repeatedly. "I'm sorry. There's no need to be like this." Makoto Senju smiled gently, quickly easing Ranjaiku Matsumoto's nervous and flustered mood, and then asked, "Why are you here?" Ranjaiku Matsumoto still subconsciously pinched the corner of her clothes, and then explained, Jin left and said he would never come back again. I want to find him." Makoto Senju heard this and almost subconsciously looked at Ranjaiku Matsumoto. It must be said that at this time, Matsumoto Ranjaiku was quite young, and her flat chest was not prominent at all. She looked like a malnourished lily who had been wandering for a long time. However, Senju Makoto tasted a kind of dog food that was running in both directions. In order to retrieve the soul of Matsumoto Ranjaiku, Ichimura-jin embarked on an unknown and dangerous road alone. In order to find Ichimura-jin, Matsumoto Ranjaiku began to wander in Rukongei in a daze. Senju Makoto, who has never supported early love, asked helplessly, "Didn't Jin leave you any money or anything like that?" No, the money should be kept for Jin to buy dried persimmons. I hid it at home." At this point, Matsumoto Ranjaiku's stomach suddenly gurgled, and her pale face suddenly became a little more embarrassed. I'm fine. If I'm hungry, I just need to bear it for a while, or I can pick up some food occasionally." Okay, Senju Makoto sighed, and gave up the idea of sending Matsumoto Ranjaiku back to her original residence. Although rationally speaking, Matsumoto Ranjaiku, whose soul was originally in a very missing state, had limited talent and did not have the ability of Bankai at all. In this case, even if Matsumoto Ranjaiku became a god of death as in the original trajectory, it would not be of much significance. On the contrary, she might become a burden and concern to Ichimura Jin. However, Senju Makoto saw the firmness in Matsumoto Ranjaiku's eyes. She was afraid that she would not stop looking for Ichimura Jin no matter what. Right. Ranjaiku, just follow me for a while from now on. Chapter 185 Offering Loyalty. Hearing this, Matsumoto Ranjaiku's face flashed with gratitude and joy, but she still shook her head and said, Makoto, thank you very much for your care. I will definitely find a way to repay your kindness in the future, but not now. I still have to find Jin. Senju Makoto rubbed Matsumoto Ranjaiku's messy hair again and said, I know where Jin is. What? Matsumoto Ranjaiku's eyes suddenly glowed and widened, and asked, Makoto, Jin, where is Jin? Knowing that this information would be known by Matsumoto Ranjaiku sooner or later, Senju Makoto had no intention of hiding it and answered directly. He has become a Shinigami of the 13th Division, and the 3rd seat of the 5th Division. I will go find him. Matsumoto Ranjaiku said firmly. Ranjaiku, how are you going to find him? Senju Makoto's words shocked Matsumoto Ranjaiku. Come with me, Ranjaiku. The best way to win to the Seireitei is to study at the Shino Academy and become a Shinigami. However, your current agent's spiritual power, Senju Makoto simply sensed it and commented. It's too early to join the Shino Academy. If you really want to find Jin as soon as possible, you should take good care of your body first, so as to meet the standards for admission to the Shino Academy. Matsumoto Ranjaiku hesitated for a long time, then hurriedly bowed to Senju Makoto respectfully and said, Makoto, I will definitely find a way to repay your kindness. Senju Makoto smiled, then bent down and picked up Matsumoto Ranjaiku, intending to take Matsumoto Ranjaiku away from here. However, at this moment, a somewhat childish roar of anger sounded from behind Senju Makoto. Damn Shinigami, let go of Ranjaiku. The next moment, Senju Makoto looked back and saw a black-haired kid picking up a bamboo pole and rushing towards Senju Makoto. The bamboo pole, which seemed to be deliberately sharpened, stabbed Senju Makoto's vital parts. However, even if Makoto Senju's level of fighting skills was often defeated by Seireitei, and he was completely pinned to the ground by Seireitei, he could not be attacked by a little devil. Makoto Senju kicked the bamboo pole backwards with his right foot, and the black-haired devil fell to the ground with the irresistible impact. Kid, you are very brave. Although Makoto Senju was not angry about such a small matter, he still felt a little ridiculous. No matter how harmless he looked, he would not dare to challenge an ordinary little devil with a bamboo pole, right? And the black-haired devil did not show any fear, and still glared at Makoto Senju and said, Asshole Shinigami, let go of Ranjaiku, come to me if you have anything. You? Makoto Senju looked at the black-haired devil in front of him, and just when he felt that he looked familiar, Ranjaiku Matsumoto said anxiously, Shibuya, don't be impulsive, he is the Dr. Senju I mentioned to you before, he is a good person. Shibuya. Hearing this, Senju Makoto recalled this name. Seireitei, the future vice-captain of the 9th Division in the original trajectory, is a very calm, low-key, loyal and upright person. Do you know each other? Senju Makoto asked Matsumoto Ranjaiku. Yes, Matsumoto Ranjaiku said a little embarrassedly. Originally, I planned to hide under the table, wait for Shuei to make some noise to attract the vendor, and then take some buns. Hearing this, Senju Makoto completely understood. It turned out that Matsumoto Ranjaiku was not a single-handed crime, but a premeditated and planned gang, and his accomplice happened to be Seireitei, who had a very good talent for the god of death. Kidnapping 1 is also kidnapping, kidnapping 2 is also kidnapping. For the sake of the security and stability of Rukongai, Senju Makoto almost immediately came up with the idea of kidnapping Seireitei and Matsumoto Ranjaiku together. After realizing that he had misunderstood Makoto Senju, and that Makoto Senju was the Senju physician that Ranjaiku Matsumoto had respected in the past, Seireitei quickly stood up and apologized for his behavior. It's okay. On the contrary, Shuei's courage to attack a stronger person is worthy of praise. Seireitei, who had been somewhat awkward and nervous in front of Makoto Senju, heard the gentle and sincere praise, and his favorability towards Makoto Senju soared dramatically. Senju-sama, I was just worried about Ranjaiku, so I rushed out in a fit of rage. Seireitei, who was praised like this for the first time, said a little embarrassedly. Makoto Senju held Ranjaiku Matsumoto in one hand, then squatted in front of Seireitei, and did not dislike the dirt all over Seireitei's body, and personally pulled Seireitei up. Such courage and loyalty should not be buried in Rukongai. How about coming with me? For a moment, Seireitei looked at Senju Cheng with the rays of sunlight on his face, as if he saw a glowing existence. Seireitei had been wandering in Rukongai, wandering around like a mouse, a maggot, and a cockroach to fill his stomach that was often hungry due to spiritual power. How could such a person like me be so admired? So recognized? So needed? Seireitei's eyes and nose turned red almost visibly, and then he slowly placed his scarred little hand on the palm of Senju Cheng's outstretched hand. Senju Cheng still showed that gentle and sunny smile on his face, and gently closed his palm and held Seireitei's slightly cold little hand. Please give me more guidance in the future, Shui. Seireitei seemed to speak in a low and hoarse voice, pausing word by word. I am willing to offer all my loyalty to Master Senju. Senju chuckled and picked up Seireitei, saying, Ha ha ha, don't be so serious. It doesn't matter if you treat me as a brother or a friend. Hearing this, Seireitei felt a clear warm current flowing through his heart, and his loyalty to Master Senju became more and more firm. No matter what, I must repay Master Senju with everything I have. Then, Senju hugged Rangiku Matsumoto and Seireitei in a somewhat crowded manner, and disappeared directly from the spot with a flash step. Fortunately, Seireitei and Rangiku Matsumoto were not very old, and Seireitei was also a very thin type. As for Rangiku Matsumoto's chest leaning against the side of Senju's head, it made Senju experience what a tablet is. With the speed of Senju, he soon arrived at the place where the young head was hidden in the golden house of Byakuya, carrying Seireitei and Matsumoto Rangiku-kun. Seeing Senju appear with two children, Fuston hurriedly came out of the house holding Rukia. P.S. I'm sorry, brothers, I didn't stick to the bottom line after all. After a strong resistance today, I was violated by Omicron. I even have a fever, nasal congestion, dizziness, and back pain that makes me unable to sit steadily. So, there are only 2 updates today. The number of updates tomorrow will depend on the status, but there will be no interruption. However, I will definitely let Omicron know that challenging me is definitely the wrong opponent. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 186. Concern and Confusion. Immediately, Senju introduced his identity to both parties and proposed to place Matsumoto Rangiku and Seireitei here. In the final analysis, Seireitei and Matsumoto Rangiku are still too young. Not everyone is a genius like Ichimura Jin, otherwise it would not have caused such a sensation when Ichimura Jin studied at the Mao Spiritual Academy at a young age. At this time, whether it is Seireitei or Matsumoto Rangiku, according to Senju simple judgment, they should not have reached the standards of Mao Spiritual Academy, which intends to expand the scope of enrollment. And directly bringing Seireitei and Matsumoto Rangiku to the Seireitei for placement, not to mention that the Seireitei has a series of related complex rules. More importantly, Seireitei and Matsumoto Rangiku have not yet reached the age of being truly fully sensible, and staying in the Seireitei will probably only bring unnecessary trouble. As for whether Senju was worried that he would have to take care of these 2 little ghosts, which would affect his cohabitation with Unohana Retsu in the courtyard, he had not thought about this aspect. Therefore, after thinking about it, Senju felt that placing Seireitei and Matsumoto Rangiku here was undoubtedly the most suitable choice. This area selected by Byakuya is undoubtedly the safest and most prosperous place in Rukongai. It just so happened that Byakuya had generously bought all the houses nearby to avoid any trouble to Haim, and there were enough rooms. Hearing this, Haim, who was gentle and kind, felt quite sympathetic towards Seireitei and Matsumoto Rangiku, but his expression revealed a little embarrassment. Haim is willing to help you, but these houses belong to Byakuya-sama, and I am just living on his behalf. It is not easy to agree without permission. Senju, are you serious? Do you still think you are just living on his behalf? There are 2 servants of the Kachika family outside who take turns to protect Heijin all the time, which is enough to show the importance of Heijin in the eyes of Byakuya Kachika. And with Byakuya Kachika's obsession with Onion Head, it is almost impossible for Byakuya Kachika to refuse such a thing that does not violate Byakuya Kachika's bottom line and philosophy. However, looking at Heijin's serious and tangled face, Senju Makoto didn't know whether to say that Heijin's inner character also has the element of innocence like Rukia. Oh, Heijin understands everything, but because of the difference in identity and status between the two parties, she is very cautious about her words and deeds and dare not cross the line in the slightest. Thinking of this, Senju Makoto couldn't help but take a deep look at Heijin, this woman who was as peaceful as the crimson sky. At this moment, Senju Makoto sensed that Byakuya Kachika's spiritual pressure was approaching rapidly, and appeared near the door in almost the blink of an eye. Then, Byakuya Kachika seemed to deliberately restrain the fluctuation of spiritual pressure and walked to the door at a leisurely pace. Lord Byakuya. Seeing Byakuya Kachika who seemed to be taking a walk, Haim stood up and saluted him. Byakuya Kachika also walked in with a calm expression, and then said in a rather gentle tone, I just happened to be doing some business in Rukongei, passing by here, and came to see the house by the way. Senju Makoto. Kachika Byakuya was completely bullying Haim because he didn't have spiritual power and couldn't sense the changes in spiritual pressure. He rushed to Haim with the flash step, and his goal was to go straight to Haim. Is this call by the way? Then, Kachika Byakuya seemed to have just noticed the existence of Makoto Senju and said, Makoto-kun, what a coincidence. Maybe Makoto Senju responded with a smile, but still tried his best to cooperate with Byakuya Kachika to act in front of Haim. And with the appearance of Byakuya Kachika, the real owner, Makoto Senju simply made a relevant request to Byakuya Kachika. To Makoto Senju's surprise, Kachika Byakuya frowned slightly at Makoto Senju's request, and then said to Haim, Heisei, please help me make a pot of tea. Yes, Lord Byakuya. As Haim left, Kachika Byakuya asked cautiously, Hisajishu and Matsumoto Rangiku both have spiritual power, right? But Haim is in poor health, is it okay to always bear this level of spiritual pressure fluctuations? Makoto Senju looked at Kachika Byakuya, who seemed to be quite careless, but his words were almost full of concern for Haim, so Kachika Byakuya also has such a proud side. This thought flashed through Makoto Senju's mind, and then he said with a smile, Byakuya, you are just too concerned, don't forget that little Rukia also has spiritual power, this level of spiritual pressure will not have any adverse effects on Haim's spirit body. Kachika Byakuya's expression relaxed at first, and then he said a little unnaturally, Who cares? I'm just a little curious. Oh, right, then, Makoto Senju placed Hisajishu and Matsumoto Rangiku in the houses on both sides of the house where Haim lived, and then told them the time of the annual entrance test for the Mao Spiritual Academy, so that they could take the test every year. Afterwards, Makoto Senju and Byakuya Kachika returned to the Seireitei together. Finally, seeing that they were about to go their separate ways, Byakuya Kachika couldn't help but ask in a low voice, Makoto-kun, have you thought of any solution to Haim's problem? Makoto Senju shook his head and replied, Sorry, Byakuya, a series of things have happened recently, and the team affairs are heavy, but I have roughly thought of several different directions, and I will take the time to study them as soon as possible. Well, at this moment, not in front of Haim, Byakuya Kachika was alone facing Makoto Senju, his good friend, and he was much more relaxed and said, If there is anything I can help you with, Makoto-kun, please feel free to ask. After a pause, Byakuya Kachika continued, But soon I will also join the 6th Division and become a Shinigami, and I will follow my father to the real world to garrison and support for a while. Hearing this news, Senju Makoto's expression could not help but reveal a bit of surprise, and asked, The real world? Isn't that usually handled by the 3rd Division and the 13th Division? Kachika Byakuya explained. Nowadays, a large number of division captains and vice-captains are vacant, and many divisions can no longer bear their original responsibilities, so although the 6th Division is the noble command team and is more responsible for the affairs of the nobles, under the current situation, many captains and divisions can only take over part of the work. Chapter 187. Kachika Kangchun. It must be said that what Kachika Byakuya said was right. The GOTY 13 is under great pressure now. Originally, due to physical reasons, the captain of the 13th Division, Yukita Jashiro, could only stay in the team dormitory to recuperate most of the time and could not go to the real world to provide support in person. Therefore, in the past, if the traces of the Great Hollow were detected in the real world, it was usually the support team of the 3rd Division, Fenj-Kaujira, who entered the real world to provide support. However, now Fenj-Kaujira was forced to flee the Soul Society, which resulted in the 6th Division assisting in this task. Relatively speaking, the 4th Division is the most stable among the entire GOTY 13 divisions now, and there is no need to assist the other divisions like a firefighter. Soon, Makoto Senju was invited to attend the ceremony where Byakuya Kachika became the 3rd seat of the 6th Division. In the days that followed, all aspects of the 4th Division were on the right track. While Makoto Senju began to try to study the situation of Hima, he began to think about the right time to present the doctor's uniform and nurse's uniform to Unohana teacher after brewing for several months. After all, Senju Makoto improved the doctor's uniform and nurse's uniform, using the excuse that it was based on the hospital system in the real world. Naturally, he could not reveal that it was completely improved by Senju Makoto based on his memory, so as to avoid being misunderstood as having bad intentions. Just as Senju Makoto was preparing to make the final draft in his office, a hell butterfly quickly flew in and landed on Senju Makoto's shoulder. The 6th Division was attacked in the real world. Please ask the Vice Captain of the 4th Division, Senju Makoto, to immediately mobilize the rescue team to provide medical assistance in the real world. Senju Makoto paused, stood up and walked quickly out of the office, saying loudly, Riza led the 1st rescue team to the 13th Division's world crossing gate to provide medical assistance in the real world. And Senju Makoto, in a flash, rushed directly to the 13th Division with a flash step without waiting for the 1st rescue team to assemble, and Senju Makoto's expression was a bit ugly. Being asked to urgently dispatch the rescue team was enough to show that the situation might be quite bad, and there must have been serious casualties, and there was no time to send them back to the Seireitei. More importantly, Senju Makoto remembered that in a normal trajectory, Kachika Sojin seemed to have died unexpectedly in a mission. No, is it this time? Senju Makoto's mind appeared the humble and gentle figure of Kachika Sojin, and his instant steps could not help but speed up again. Not only because of the good relationship between him and Byakuya Kachika, but also from a rational point of view, it would be a pity for Kachika Sojin, a perfect example of a noble, to die like this. When Senju Makoto rushed to the 13th Division, the captain of the 13th Division, Yukita Joshiro, who was pale and coughing from time to time, was already waiting in front of the gate. Makoto, are you alone? Yukita Joshiro asked weakly. The 1st rescue team will arrive soon, and I'm a little worried about the emergency in the real world, so I plan to rush to the real world first. Senju Makoto explained. Millimeter, ahem, sorry to bother you Makoto, but why don't you wait a little longer? I've also contacted Captain Kirku, and he'll be here soon. After a pause, Yukita Joshiro said with a look of unwillingness on his face. It's all my fault. If it was fine, this crisis wouldn't have happened, and I wouldn't be able to do anything. Senju Makoto, who was a little worried about the situation of Kachika Sojin and Kachika Byakuya, refused Yukita Joshiro's kindness and insisted on going ahead. Okay then. In the end, Yukita Joshiro reminded Senju Makoto to be careful, and briefly told Senju Makoto about the current situation in the real world. Originally, the 12th Division monitored and found that a brief fluctuation of the spiritual pressure of the Great Hollow Uchikase appeared in a certain area of the real world, so the vice captain of the 6th Division, Kachika Sojin, led the team to the real world to search and purify it. However, no one could have imagined that the Uchikase had the special ability to completely hide its spiritual pressure. Just when the 6th Division's dev god had been searching for nearly a month and was almost sure that the Uchikase had returned to Hukomundo, the Uchikase quietly attacked and seriously injured Kachika Sojin, causing Kachika Sojin to be unable to perform Bankai. When hearing the last sentence, Senju Makoto's face showed a bit of surprise. After all, Kachika Sojin was notoriously weak and unsuitable for fighting in the Seireitei, but he didn't expect Kachika Sojin to master Bankai. However, the reason why the Seireitei confidently sent Kachika Sojin to the real world to destroy the Uchikase was that it was indeed logical that he needed to have the ability to master Bankai. Then, Senju Makoto quickly stepped into the world crossing gate and quickly passed through the broken world under the guidance of the hell butterfly. The next moment, in the air of the real world, a world crossing gate appeared out of thin air, and then quickly opened, and Senju Makoto's figure walked out of it. The real world. Unlike the entire Soul Society and Hukomundo, which are composed of spirit particles, most of the matter in the real world is composed of existences called instruments. At this moment, it was midnight in the real world, and the city under his feet was completely shrouded in darkness. The next moment, a shocking spiritual pressure of Uchikase was sensed by Senju Makoto, in addition to the spiritual pressure of Kachika Sojin, Kachika Byakuya and other 6th Division Shinigami. However, Kachika Sojin's spiritual pressure seemed quite unstable. Senju Cheng's figure flashed, and quickly landed on a tall building where he could see the battlefield situation clearly. Under the leadership of Sojin, more than 10 Shinigami were trying to contain the Uchikage that looked very close to human form. However, Sojin, who was the main fighting force, had a conspicuous blood hole in his lower back, and blood was constantly flowing out. In addition, in the outer area, there were 9 6th Division Shinigami whose lives and deaths were unknown. Obviously, the situation in front of them was extremely bad for the 6th Division. This humanoid Uchikage was obviously different from the retarded Uchikage that Makoto Senju encountered in Rukongeda last time. Just by looking at it for a few breaths, Makoto Senju felt the extremely high IQ of the humanoid Uchikage. It did not allow itself to be restrained by the 6th Division Shinigami with the binding technique, but instead kept the pressure on Sojin, not giving Sojin any chance to heal. And Sojin's condition was getting worse and worse. Endless vitality, everything in the world. Then, Makoto Senju, who did not dare to delay any longer, directly released his zanpakutō, and a large area of green land quickly spread out with Makoto Senju as the center, and provided wartime medical assistance to Sojin. P.S. I played a high-end game of 40 degrees for a full 24 hours, and my body temperature only dropped a little just now. It can be seen that the problem is not big, and victory is in sight. It seems that the mere Omicron can only resist me for 24 hours. Chapter 188. As long as I'm alive. The spreading green grass seemed to bring hopeful vitality to the dead knight, each blade of green grass slightly extended and connected with the 6th squad Shinigami present, quickly restoring the status of the 6th squad Shinigami, making them feel refreshed. Sojin's spirit body, which had mastered the Bankai, had undoubtedly reached the captain level. The spirit particles that constructed his own spirit body were completely different from those of ordinary Shinigami spirit particles. In particular, Sojin's wound was of a particularly serious type, and even Senju Makoto could not repair it immediately at this stage. However, as Senju Makoto's healing and medical skills became more and more sophisticated, he was able to manipulate the spirit particles to temporarily block every bleeding point in Sojin's body, thereby ensuring that Sojin's condition would not continue to deteriorate and maintaining Sojin's basic combat ability. This scene was almost equivalent to a large-scale change of the terrain, and it also caused the entire battlefield to fall into a slight pause. At this moment, Seireitei, who looked quite embarrassed, looked at the familiar green grass under his feet, and a look of surprise flashed across his face. He suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of Senju Makoto. In the dark night, Senju Makoto, who was high up in the sky, was wearing a Shinigami costume. His gentle figure was blown by the cold wind, and he looked reliable. Makoto-kun. Seireitei couldn't help but shout. Senju Makoto had no intention of getting closer to the battlefield at this moment. He just waved to Seireitei from a distance. As a doctor, his calm action made the 6th Division Shinigami feel that their lives were guaranteed. Sojin, whose brows were almost completely locked, reached out and touched the wound on his lower back, which had stopped bleeding under the effect of the spreading green grass. His expression eased a little, and he couldn't help but nodded in the direction of Senju Makoto. The other 6th Division Shinigami felt the rapid recovery of their spirits, and their morale was also shocked. More importantly, the vice-captain of the 4th Division had come to support, so the follow-up reinforcements from the Seireitei should be able to arrive soon. The humanoid Uchikage's eyes, which were completely filled with bright yellow, seemed to turn slightly, and then turned into a residual shadow and rushed towards Sojin. Its extremely high IQ made it clear that among all the Shinigami present, only Sojin gave it a sense of threat. However, it was too fragrant. The instinct of the hollow is to constantly devour one soul after another, so as to constantly fill its own void. Sojin, who was born into a noble family and mastered the spirit of Bankai, was undoubtedly a food that exuded a fatal temptation to this humanoid Uchikage. In particular, this humanoid Uchikage hid in the dark and secretly observed Sojin for nearly a month, confirming that Sojin's body seemed to have some kind of disease, and he was in a state of physical weakness for almost a long time. Therefore, this humanoid Uchikage launched a fatal surprise attack on Sojin. Although Sojin reacted very quickly and avoided the fatal vitals, he was still left with extremely serious injuries. Now with the appearance of Senju Makoto, this humanoid Uchikage also realized that he had little time left and had to eat this delicious food before the other Shinigami arrived. Bang! The next moment, this of Cheng-ge collided with Kachiki Sojin, and the two huge spiritual pressures intertwined and tore each other madly. Then, the humanoid at Cheng-ge chased Kachiki Sojin, who could only barely resist, and large areas of cherry blossoms and the bindings released by the other 6th Division Shinigami followed one after another. At this time, even though the 6th Division was the noble command team, almost all members from top to bottom were of noble origin, but they also knew what a righteous group fight was. However, the sensitivity of this humanoid at Cheng-ge was terrifyingly high. With just a few light dodges, he dodged all the attacks, and then casually threw dense virtual bullets at the surrounding 6th Division Shinigami. Among them, there were even more than 10 virtual bullets heading straight towards Senju Bancho, who was far away from the center of the battlefield. The speed of the virtual bullet was so fast that it exploded around the battlefield in just a blink of an eye, and was about to reach Senju Bancho's position. However, Senju Bancho is far from facing a Cheng-ge for the first time. He was only facing a retarded Cheng-ge, but he still made himself embarrassed, and even had half of his chest blown away by virtual flash. Almost as soon as Senju Bancho raised his eyebrows, the 9 green grasses at his feet quickly spread and expanded into giant trees, and kept crossing and overlapping in front of Senju Bancho. In just a blink of an eye, a human high wooden ghost mask formed by 9 giant trees intertwined and overlapped formed in front of Senju Bancho. Boom boom boom, a series of virtual bullets fell on the wooden ghost mask, making a sound of explosion. The faint smoke dissipated, and the wooden ghost mask almost did not leave any traces, not to mention Senju Bancho, who was injured by the wooden ghost mask. However, now Senju Bancho has enough spare energy to reach the hollow bullets released by a Cheng-ge, but the rest of the 6th Division Shinigami have no such luck. Except for Kachiki, who showed his usually disgusting high-level instant step to dodge, the rest of the 6th Division Shinigami were almost all injured to varying degrees. Some of the 6th Division Shinigami who encountered multiple hollow bullets and had no time to dodge them had already fallen to the ground with their bodies burnt black. However, the next moment, the green grass emitted the light of life and quickly enveloped the injured 6th Division Shinigami. In the somewhat astonished eyes of the humanoid at Cheng-ge, those fragile Shinigami actually recovered quickly with the high-speed regeneration that is almost unique to the hollows. In fact, let alone the humanoid at Cheng-ge, even those 6th Division Shinigami who had fully recovered most of their injuries in just a few breaths were full of astonishment. So strong. Is this the strength of Senju Bancho, the vice-captain of the 4th Division of the Medical Division? Even several Squad 6 Shinigami who were charred by the explosion slowly got up from the ground with a look of astonishment on their faces. Are you kidding me? You can't die except for the pain. For a moment, the multiple hollow bombs that would have dealt a heavy blow to the Squad 6 Shinigami actually raised the morale of the Squad 6 Shinigami to an unprecedented level. As long as I'm alive, I will never let you suffer. Senju Bancho's gentle and firm voice sounded far away at the edge of the battlefield, reaching the ears of every Shinigami, warming the hearts of the Squad 6 Shinigami. Chapter 189. How can I disgrace the name of the rotten wood? At this moment, the 6th Division Shinigami finally understood why there was a rumor in the Seireitei. The man that the 11th Division desires most is the 4th Division Vice-Captain Senju Bancho. This kind of instant healing ability during wartime is undoubtedly extremely attractive to the battle maniacs of the 11th Division. And that humanoid at Cheng-ge also understood that Senju Bancho's threat was far greater than everyone present. The injuries of the 6th Division Shinigami healed quickly. Although Kachiki Sojin's injuries did not recover, his injuries were apparently stabilized inexplicably. There is no doubt that if this continues, it will almost result in an endless protracted war. At least, it is very likely that Kachiki Sojin will not be able to be defeated before more combat forces from the Seireitei come to support him. However, the humanoid at Cheng-ge did not show any sign of it on the surface, but instead let out a roar that seemed to represent a confused consciousness, as if it was just driven by instinct to launch a fierce attack on Kachiki Sojin again. Dang ding bang boom. Although he is notoriously weak and unsuitable for fighting, his talent and ability are extremely high. In the dazzling battle, Kachiki Sojin used all the techniques of Hakuba, Shunpo, Kitten, and slashing to the right degree. In addition, many Squad 6 Shinigami continued to release Kitten to assist, and the situation seemed to be gradually stabilizing. However, Senju Bancho looked at the direction where the humanoid at Cheng-ge, which seemed to be in a frenzy, was constantly deviating from the direction where it was fighting with Kachiki Sojin, and was faintly approaching his direction. Senju Bancho narrowed his eyes and vaguely realized something. The next moment, the Ichike's forcibly endured a slash from Kachiki Sojin, but its body burst out with an unprecedented speed and suddenly pounced towards Senju Makoto. Be careful, Vice Captain Senju. Mr. Makoto, retrieve quickly, damn it, Ichike's, stop right there. For a moment, with the anxious shouts of the 6th Division Shinigami, the binding techniques released one after another to try to stop Ichike's were completely unable to catch up with the speed of this humanoid Ichike's. From Kachiki Sojin's extremely ugly face, it was obvious that in the previous battle, this Ichike's had actually been hiding some of its strength and speed. In just a blink of an eye, the Ichike's had appeared less than 10 meters away from Senju Makoto. 10 meters, for the speed of this humanoid Ichike's, it was undoubtedly within reach. However, this humanoid Cheng-ge seemed to see a hint of mockery in the eyes of the Shinigami in front of him, whose spiritual pressure was not outstanding and was probably equal to that of Byakuya Kachiki. Although in the real world, for Senju Makoto, whose real ability was spiritual control, it was undoubtedly a full-scale weakening. Because in the real world, the foundation of everything is mostly made of artifacts. Except for some specific areas such as heavy spiritual lands, the spirit particles are relatively rare in Soul Society. However, as earlier Senju Makoto realized that this humanoid Cheng-ge had a considerable IQ, he had been absorbing spirit particles in advance to prepare for this moment. Perhaps, it is impossible to produce a giant tree that fills the entire all-ending space in a single thought like the previous battle with Unohana Retsu, but it is enough for Senju Makoto, who usually hides his skills in front of outsiders. Temporarily blocking an Cheng-ge that has not been transformed into an Seireitei, it is enough. The next moment, within 10 meters of Senju Makoto, giant trees soared into the sky and blocked the humanoid Cheng-ge's, completely covering up Senju Makoto's figure. Bang! The humanoid Cheng-ge suddenly punched the giant trees in front of it, and only broke 3 giant trees before it could not continue. However, in just a blink of an eye, the gaps left by the broken giant trees were filled again. For a moment, this highly intelligent humanoid Cheng-ge was almost stunned on the spot. What kind of turtle shell is this? While madly treating the group, it can also wrap itself up layer by layer. However, before the humanoid Cheng-ge could fully react, the large number of giant trees that soared into the sky intertwined with each other in the air, forming a shape similar to a giant wooden dragon, and then suddenly swooped down towards the humanoid Cheng-ge. Boom! From a distance, it looked as if a giant dragon bit an ant and crashed into the ground, stirring up a lot of smoke and dust. This scene full of beauty and violence made Kachiki Sojin, Kachiki Byakuya and the members of the 6th Division present stunned on the spot. So strong. For the vice captain of the medical division, isn't this obviously too strong? That one is an Cheng-ge's, benchmarking the great hollow that only the captain-level death god can deal with. And the next moment, in the center of the layers of giant trees, the voice of Senju Makoto, who seemed to be overdrawn, came. Hurry up, I can't hold on in this state for much longer. Instantly, Kachiki Byakuya, who had fought with Senju Makoto himself, understood immediately and quickly explained. Makoto's zanpakutō is a wood-type healing ability. He later developed offensive and defensive abilities. Although Makoto's gentleness never set the specific price, it is likely to be accompanied by problems such as being unable to move and overdrawing spiritual power. For a moment, the 6th Division Shinigami present were inexplicably moved. The vice-captain of the healing division was forced to overdraw in order to support them. This was undoubtedly a shame for the noble division Shinigami who were constantly receiving treatment from the vice-captain of Senju. Immediately, the 6th Division Shinigami took advantage of the gap created by Senju Makoto and chanted high-level ghost arts with difficulty. Perhaps, the real combat power of the ordinary soldiers of the 6th Division may not be much better than that of the other divisions, but thanks to the noble background, they have mastered a lot of ghost arts. Especially since most of the high-level ghost arts require long chanting to release, there is not much chance to use them in normal battles. Kachiki Sojin pressed the wound on his lower back with one hand, and a hint of tenacity flashed across his gentle face. He held the zanpakutō in front of him and spoke slowly. Bloom, flowers of the other shore. The next moment, similar to Kachiki Byakuya's Senbon Bancho, blood-red flowers of the other shore kept floating away from Kachiki Sojin's blade. However, as the flowers of the other shore continued to grow, Kachiki Sojin's face became paler and paler. Father, Kachiki Byakuya noticed Kachiki Sojin's changes and subconsciously shouted with some worry. Don't worry, Byakuya, Vice Captain Senju will barely suppress my injuries for me, and it won't be a problem to release my zanpakutō in a short time. Kachiki Sojin's pale face flashed with pride and tenderness, and said, "What's more, if I can't even deal with the Yorukas, I'll be disgraced by my name. P.S. I had a low-grade fever for another 24 hours, and it has completely subsided tonight. This is undoubtedly a big victory. But I still have persistent headaches and loss of taste, especially the loss of taste. Why porridge and boiled water taste bitter, and I can't taste the salt. It's amazing. Thank you all for your concern during this period. I was not in good condition before, so I couldn't reply to thank you one by one. I can only thank you all here. However, I should be able to resume normal updates tomorrow, and then I will update more for you guys in 2 days. In addition, it's the end of the month, please give me a monthly ticket. Monthly ticket. Monthly ticket. Chapter 190 Sparks. At this moment, in Byakuya Kachika's eyes, the father who was often considered unable to shoulder the responsibility of the Kachika family due to his weak body, has become much more majestic. For the glory of the Kachika family, the next moment, in the huge smoke and dust blasted by the wooden dragon, a red flash shot up into the sky and tore the wooden dragon directly into 2 halves. Amidst the countless wood chips flying around, the humanoid Cheng-ge slowly flew up from the smoke. However, with the appearance of the humanoid Cheng-ge, it was greeted by a series of high-level ghost arts that had been prepared in advance. Binding art no. 62. 100-step railing binding art no. 61. 6-star flight prison binding art no. 63. Locking bars, limited by the strength of spiritual pressure, the limit of ordinary 6th Division Shinigami can only use the power of the reduced number 60 or so binding arts. Perhaps, 1 or 2 of these bindings would cause limited trouble to the humanoid Cheng-ge, but more than a dozen bindings of about 60 numbers briefly confined the humanoid Cheng-ge in mid-air. The next moment, Kachiki Sojin rushed towards the humanoid Cheng-ge, and countless blood-red spider lilies fluttered gently around Kachiki Sojin, making Kachiki Sojin look like a nobleman walking out of a poem. This scene shocked even Senju Cheng. The Kachiki family's zanpakutō may not be the strongest, but in terms of beauty, they are really more gorgeous and beautiful than one another. Kachiki Sojin's zanpakutō is also similar to Kachiki Byakuya at this moment. There is only a hilt left in his hand, and the blade of the zanpakutō has all turned into those beautiful blood-red spider lilies. Under the slightly puzzled eyes of Senju Cheng, common sense suggests that Kachiki Sojin should keep a distance from the enemy in this situation to avoid being trapped in a hand-to-hand combat. However, Kachiki Sojin was still actively approaching the humanoid Cheng-ge at a high speed. However, when Kachiki Sojin was completely close to the humanoid Cheng-ge that was about to break free of all the restraints, he raised the handle of the knife in his hand and made a thrusting motion towards the head of the humanoid Cheng-ge. The other shore withers the red spider lilies surrounding Kachiki Sojin quickly gathered to form a seemingly beautiful and harmless red spider lily blade, and the other end was connected to the head of the humanoid Cheng-ge. However, the red spider lily blade, which seemed to be made up of red spider lilies, seemed to ignore the tough steel skin of the humanoid Cheng-ge and seemed to penetrate into the head. The red spider lily blade seemed to be getting more and more blood red, but it was withering rapidly, and Kachiki Sojin's face was obviously pale. Instead, it seemed that red spider lilies were generated from the head of the humanoid Cheng-ge from the inside out, until the whole head was covered. Kachiki Sojin clenched the handle of the knife in his hand and flicked it gently, and the red spider lilies withered, and the head of the humanoid Cheng-ge disappeared completely. Win, Lord Sojin, you're amazing. Sure enough, no matter how many times I see it, it will always feel not enough. This is the beautiful and dangerous zanpakutō ability of Lord Sojin. For a moment, the Shinigami of the 6th Division cheered one after another, and Kachiki Byakuya couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Seeing this, Senju Cheng also removed the layers of giant trees that wrapped him up, and his figure flashed and landed beside Kachiki Byakuya. Seeing this, Kachiki Byakuya quickly bowed to Senju Cheng and said, "Mr. Cheng, thank you so much. Don't say these polite words, we're friends, and the first rescue team should be here soon." After a pause, Senju Cheng asked curiously, "Also, what is the ability of Vice Captain Sojin's zanpakutō? It looks so powerful." Kachiki Byakuya said with a bitter smile. "Father's zanpakutō ability is not suitable for his ability at all. Higanbana grows in blood, grows with its own blood, and blooms and withers with the blood of the enemy. but father's body can't support this ability for long. Then, Kachikabyukaya said again with gratitude. If it weren't for Makoto-kun creating the opportunity this time, I'm afraid father would have no chance to deal with this case. How could it be? I'm afraid even without me, Vice Captain Sojin would just have to spend more time. Senju Makoto said politely, and his eyes immediately looked in the direction of Kachika Sojin. As the battle ended, Kachika Sojin seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, and waved to Senju Makoto from a distance to show his friendship and gratitude. However, Senju Makoto's face suddenly changed, and he subconsciously stretched out his hand in the direction of Kachika Sojin. Suddenly, the green grass under Kachika Sojin's feet grew and spread at an astonishing speed, entwined Kachika Sojin's ankles, and then dragged him to the side. The next moment, a cold light flashed behind Kachika Sojin, and blood splattered. In a pair of shocked eyes, Kachika Sojin's arm holding the zanpakutō flew out of his body and fell into the hands of the humanoid case that had lost even its head. How is it possible? Why can it still move without a head? Lord Sojin. Amid the shock of the 6th Division Shinigami, the humanoid case that had always shown a high IQ spoke for the first time, and it did not speak from the head that disappeared, but from the abdomen. What a pity. I thought this attack would be enough to kill this god of death, but it only tore off an arm. The humanoid case said as he stuffed Kachika Sojin's arm into his stomach. Then, in the shocked eyes of the god of death, the humanoid case stomach actually opened a mouthful of sharp teeth, and then he ate the whole arm and chewed it. Delicious, so delicious, even more delicious than I imagined. Is this the taste of a captain-level god of death? Sparks is really moved. This scene made the god of death present both angry and frightened. Especially when the last case named Sparks took out a zanpakutō that had been tightly held from his mouth in his abdomen, and then threw it aside casually, and slowly opened a pair of eyes in his abdomen. A huge spiritual pressure that was much larger than before and made the god of death of the 6th Division despair burst out from Sparks' body. Sparks' eyes on his abdomen glanced at Kachika Sojin, whose arm was torn off and half of his body was covered in blood, then looked at Senju Makoto, whose expression seemed a little solemn, and the other Shinigami who were full of disbelief, and said, "No way. You naive Shinigami don't think Sparks can be killed so easily, do you?" Chapter 191. The Birth of the Tree World. You bunch of naive Shinigami have never been to Hukomundo, have you? That place filled with death, loneliness, and fighting, the Great Hollow Forest is filled with countless killians. I don't know how many corpses of their own kind it has to devour, and how many years it will take for them to regain consciousness and evolve into a higher level of case. However, even if they become a case with individual consciousness, once they stop devouring souls, they may lose their individual consciousness again at any time and degenerate into a killian. During this process, if they are bitten even a little bit by a great hollow of the same or higher level, they will stop evolving permanently. Shinigami, the fights and slaughters between a case are far more cruel than you can imagine. Therefore, in order to survive, Sparks evolved the ability to hide their spiritual pressure and use false limbs. At this point, the mouth on Sparks' belly seemed to open a little wider, and he said, "In other words, it's fake death, and then swallow the other party as food while the other party is enjoying the food. And now, the only Shinigami who can threaten Sparks can't even hold the knife, and it's time for Sparks to enjoy the food." Almost as soon as the voice fell, Sparks' figure completely disappeared from the spot. However, Sparks did not target Kachika Sojin, but went straight to the rest of the Shinigami of the 6th Division. There is no doubt that ordinary Shinigami have almost no ability to resist a case. In just a moment, the mouth in Sparks' abdomen was filled with the spirits of the Shinigami of the 6th Division. The constant chewing sound made Kachika Sojin shout with red eyes, "Stop, bastard!" Witnessing this scene, Senju Makoto couldn't help but breathe a little faster. However, Senju Makoto knew that this was Sparks deliberately provoking Kachika Sojin to confirm whether Kachika Sojin had any backup to fight back before death. "I can only say, Sparks, this hollow is definitely an old silver coin in the case. Mr. Makoto, when will the follow-up combat support from the Seireitei arrive?" Kachikabyukaya asked hurriedly. Senju Makoto could not help but be silent about this question. The support plan formulated by Kitsujiro was led by the captain of the 8th Division, Kikuchansui, to come to the world with the rescue team. In addition, Kitsujiro was worried about the safety of Senju Makoto, and repeatedly asked Senju Makoto to wait for Kikuchansui before setting off together. However, the reason why Senju Cheng resolutely insisted on setting off alone was because he learned from Yuli's Heilu that Kakushansui was drinking in the izakaya in broad daylight, and was playing some vulgar version of flower arrangement games with 3 or 5 beauties. At least, the notification from Jikutcho did not wake up the drunk Kakushansui at all. Therefore, Senju Cheng knew at the time that if he really waited for Kakushansui, I'm afraid Kachiki Sojin's body would definitely be almost cold, so he just had to prepare to go to the Kachiki family for a feast. However, in front of Yukita Jashiro, Senju Cheng had no way to explain why he knew so much about Kakushansui's condition. It's almost done, therefore, facing Kachiki Byakuya's questioning, Senju Cheng could only give a vague answer. At this moment, under the treatment of Sinrawang Siang, the bleeding of the wound on the broken arm stopped, but the whole person's face was extremely pale and stood up and said, "Byakuya, Makoto-kun, wait a minute, I will stop this case, you take the rest of the team away from here." Kachiki Byakuya was startled and shouted almost subconsciously, "Father, do you want to force Bankai?" "No, if that happens, you will also, Byakuya." Kachiki Sojin's voice suddenly rose, and he said with a severity that he didn't usually have. "To protect the honor of the Kachiki family, we need to sacrifice our blood and lives, not just the so-called awareness in words. We Kachiki are the model of nobility, we Kachiki are the leaders of nobility, we Kachiki are the honor of nobility. When has there ever been a Kachiki who turned his back on the hollow and fled in panic? Protecting my subordinates is what I, Kachiki Sojin, should do. The so-called strength and life should be used at this moment." These words full of honor and determination not only made Kachiki Byakuya's eyes tear up, but also Spark's expression became a little solemn, and he stopped killing the remaining 6th Division Shinigami. Father, Kachiki Byakuya said with some red eyes. When Kachiki Sojin raised his only remaining arm, the large amount of blood that was originally spilled on the ground by Kachiki Sojin slowly gave birth to one red spider lily after another. As the handle of the knife that Sparks casually threw on the ground was rapidly decomposed, the large amount of red spider lilies quickly began to gather towards Kachiki Sojin. Bankai, however, before Kachiki Sojin, who had already fully prepared himself, could perform his Bankai, a thick green grass like a vine suddenly climbed up from behind Kachiki Sojin, and then expanded to block Kachiki Sojin's mouth, abruptly stopping Kachiki Sojin's voice. "Vice Captain Sojin, I'm sorry, your awareness touched and impressed me very much, but it is very rude to casually abandon your life in front of a doctor." Senju Cheng's gentle and helpless voice sounded. Makoto-kun. What are you doing?" Kachiki Byakuya stared at Senju Cheng in a daze, as if his father who was about to become a martyr was pulled back by someone's shoe sole. "Practice the responsibility as a doctor and save lives." After a pause, Senju Cheng spoke. "If I'm not mistaken, Vice Captain Sojin is going to sacrifice his life for Bankai, right? But it's far from the last moment now." As Senju Cheng spoke, he looked at Sparks who had been keeping a distance from him. "Speaking of which, I have to thank him for being cautious. He gave me enough time to prepare." As Senju Cheng's voice fell, giant trees rose up with Senju Cheng as the center, and a small forest was formed in the blink of an eye. Kachiki Sojin and the rest of the 6th Division Shinigami were also pulled into it. In order to make up for not being able to protect the patient in front of a Chikage last time, I specially developed the ability for this moment. The birth of the tree world. As Senju Cheng's voice fell, the densely packed giant trees even slowly grew branches and leaves, as if a real forest appeared in front of Sparks. Is this trip trying to delay time again? Then let you see the true power of Chikage. Sparks grinned at his abdomen, and a dazzling red ball of light quickly took shape and was faintly getting bigger. P.S. There is another update later, but it's a little late. Chapter 192 Middle Finger Flash, 3rd update, please give me a monthly ticket. At the same time, in Forest of All Things Birth of the Tree World, the densely packed giant trees covered the space, making Kachiki Sojin, Kachiki Byakuya and the 6th Squad Shinigami who were transferred to the center by Senju Cheng feel that they were in a dark space. Although they were close at hand, they could only barely see the outline of each other. Then, Senju Cheng's somewhat weak voice sounded, saying, You stay here and don't move, Makoto-kun. How are you?" Kachiki Byakuya followed the direction of Senju Cheng's voice and finally found a figure who seemed to be limp on the edge of a giant tree, and hurriedly stepped forward to ask. At this moment, in Kachiki Byakuya's perception, Senju Cheng's spiritual pressure was extremely weak, as if it had been completely overdrawn with the establishment of this forest. Don't worry, Byakuya, just let me rest. This forest should be able to block the Seireitei for a while. Senju Cheng said with a somewhat relaxed tone. However, Byakuya could clearly tell the weakness in Senju Cheng's voice, which was clearly pretending to be relaxed. This, a close friend. Byakuya was so moved that his eyes were filled with tears. In order to prevent his father from sacrificing his life, Cheng would rather pay a huge price to try to stop Cheng-ge's. This tenderness, this friendship, Cheng, are you really okay? Byakuya, who was still a teenager, asked with a bit of heartache. Of course, I still have to help you cure the problem of him, but I just don't have the energy to help Vice Captain Sojin and other team members deal with their injuries for the time being. Sorry. Senju Cheng's words were like a warm arrow that shot directly through Byakuya's seemingly cold and proud shell, and penetrated directly into his heart full of emotions. The other 6th Division Shinigami couldn't help but burst into tears. What a good Shinigami is this? What a good Vice Captain of the 4th Division. Even if he is doing everything he can to protect them now, he is still apologizing for not being able to treat them. It's okay, Cheng-kun, stop talking, have a good rest, Byakuya said hurriedly. His voice was more gentle than ever before, a gentleness that he had never shown in front of him. Well, I'll take a break. Senju Cheng responded slowly, and most of his consciousness seemed to be integrated into the forest of everything, the birth of the tree world. And because of the dim environment covered by the giant trees, no one noticed that Senju Cheng's left hand had merged with the giant tree behind him. After all, the concentration of spirit particles in the world is extremely low, which is an all-round weakening for Senju Cheng's spirit particle control. Even if Senju Cheng has been maintaining large tracts of grass to absorb spirit particles, the Senju Cheng the birth of the tree world created now still makes Senju Cheng dissatisfied. Therefore, Senju Cheng has planned to quietly use the characteristics of the ultimate spirit body. As Senju Cheng's consciousness merged into the birth of the tree world, a face similar to Senju Cheng appeared on the surface of a giant tree near Sparks, watching Sparks' condensing virtual flash. The next moment, with Senju Cheng's thoughts, hundreds of giant trees quickly spread and entangled together, turning into a huge palm that suddenly covered Sparks. What? Sparks was stunned, and then the face on the abdomen showed a disdainful expression. The hardness and strength of these giant trees are indeed quite good, almost comparable to the trees in the Great Void Forest. However, virtual flash is not something that can be resisted by materials of this level. Then, Sparks did not wait for the virtual flash to reach its maximum power, and directly blasted towards the giant palm in front of him. Boom! The huge power formed a visible airwave that spread to the surroundings almost at the moment when the virtual flash exploded, and the violent red torrent rushed towards the giant palm frantically. However, the giant palm clenched into a fist as if it had expected it, and then a middle finger slowly popped out, and the tip of the middle finger collided with the virtual flash just right. The next moment, Sparks' cracked mouth slowly solidified. That middle finger actually extinguished the virtual flash that he had almost used all his strength. If it weren't for the burning smell caused by the friction of the high concentration of virtual flash in the air, Sparks would even think that he was hallucinating. What, are you kidding? Just as Sparks said this unconsciously, the huge shadow enveloped Sparks, and the wooden middle finger that was almost equivalent to falling from the sky directly poked Sparks. Bang! The earth trembled. Even the many death gods in the center of Senbon tree world birth felt a shake, and their expressions became a little ugly. That wave of vibration just now was a void flash. The whole earth is shaking. Is the void flash of that case so powerful? Can this forest created by Vice Captain Senju block it? No, it should be blocked, but even the earth is shaking like this. I don't know how many times it can be blocked. While the death gods were all worried, Sparks was pressed to the ground by the middle finger like a fly and could not move. No matter how Sparks struggled or resisted, the huge middle finger pressing on it did not change at all. Then, on the part of the middle finger that was similar to the fingernail, a wooden doll with an outline that was somewhat similar to Senju Cheng protruded, staring at Sparks below in parallel. Give up struggling, Void, this is not a force that you can resist at your level. The wooden doll spoke slowly, as if stating a fact without any emotion. After all, the giant tree that has been integrated with the ultimate spirit body cannot be destroyed even by Unohana's slash. This has long made Senju Cheng understand that the level of the ultimate spirit body is far beyond common sense. Perhaps, the ultimate spirit body is not absolutely invulnerable, but it is definitely not something that can be destroyed by a case. Then, the eyes of the wooden doll that showed no emotion slowly turned, as if looking at some experimental product, which made Sparks feel a chill in his heart inexplicably. In fact, from the beginning, I felt something inconsistent from you. You were almost human-shaped, without a mask on your face, and you were obviously intelligent but don't speak. You can't see the position of the hollow on the surface, judge others by yourself, put yourself in their shoes. Your current shell is not the real body at all, right? Is it still hidden deeper in the body? The wooden doll said slowly, and the strength of the middle finger pressing on Sparks continued to increase. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 193 Sal Apollo. Before Aizen Sosok used the Hojoku to study the hollow and Seireitei on the hollow, there were two obvious features on the hollow: the mask and the hollow hole. Of course, the mask and the hollow hole also had different shapes and sizes for each hollow. However, on the surface of this humanoid case named Sparks, Makoto Senju never found the existence of the mask and the hollow hole. Although Sparks claimed to have the ability of false limbs after losing his head and was good at pretending to be dead, to Makoto Senju, it sounded more like a deliberate misleading. The purpose is to make the listener feel that Sparks can regenerate his head. Crack, crack, as the weight of the giant tree made up of hundreds of giant trees increased little by little, the surface of Sparks' extremely hard body appeared layer by layer of cracks, as if it was about to be completely broken. Stop, God of Death, mercy, mercy, God of Death, don't use your middle finger anymore, I was wrong, let me go, let me go. Sparks' tone also changed from anger to fear and then to pleading, and he begged for mercy without any dignity. Of course, for this case who exuded a completely evil aura from the inside out, the so-called dignity had no value in front of life. The wooden doll that hosted part of Senju Makoto's will still looked at Sparks without any expression, and then said slowly, "Say what you really should say." Then, facing the real threat of death, Sparks almost didn't hesitate, and said everything out like a bamboo tube pouring beans. Sparks did originally live in the desert area of the Upper Huko Mundo, but he has used his ability to fake his death for decades. Except for occasionally being able to deceive some newly promoted Uchikes, it has become increasingly difficult for him to find food. The rest of the Uchikes have evolved more towards combat capabilities. Sparks' direct combat capabilities are far inferior to those of the Uchikes of the same period, and he may not even be able to defeat the newly promoted Uchikes. Therefore, in order to survive and avoid the disappearance of his individual consciousness and degenerating into Killian again, Sparks had to open the black cavity to find food in the real world. For a moment, Sparks' tone was almost like tears, and he was just about to shout, "My lord, the world is difficult, and I am just trying to survive. What's wrong with me?" However, after a little thought, Makoto Senju realized the loophole in Sparks' words. For Uchikes, no matter how many ordinary souls in the real world he absorbs, it is just like a small dessert that is difficult to fill his stomach, and it has almost no effect on maintaining his own evolution. That is why there are very few Uchikes wandering around in the real world. After all, Uchikes are also very busy. They have to go to bed early and get up early. They are active on the front line of devouring the great hollows of the same level every day. How can they have time to wander around in the real world? Even if they're really hungry, Uchikes can go to the Great Hollow Forest to devour a few killians, which is more nutritious than ordinary human souls. Therefore, the wooden puppet slowly made a sound and said, "Your goal from the beginning is to attract the God of Death, right? And then find a way to devour the soul of the God of Death, right?" Sparks' voice paused, and for a moment it seemed like a stuck spring, and the sound it seemed to continue to make was abruptly frozen. The next moment, the strength of the middle finger pressing on Sparks increased by another 3 points. Snap! With a crisp sound, Sparks seemed to have something on his body that had exploded first. "Mercy, mercy, please give me a chance, Lord Death, I've said it all, I've said it all." Sparks' voice became more and more urgent this time, and he spoke repeatedly. Then, the strength of his middle finger was slightly reduced, and Senju Makoto spoke slowly. "You have one last chance left. No matter whether you are telling the truth or not, as long as I think there is a loophole, then we will say goodbye forever." "Yes, yes, yes," Sparks responded repeatedly in a panic, saying. Sparks' target is indeed the Death God, because Sparks heard from a hollow that the appearance of a captain-level Death God in the world will restrict spiritual pressure, which is the best opportunity to hunt the Death God. What is the name of that hollow? Senju Cheng asked after noticing a key piece of information. Zanpakutō. Sparks replied. Senju Cheng heard this, and subconsciously appeared in his mind the image of the pink-haired mad scientist in the original trajectory, the 80th blade who has the ability to play with life at will. Zanpakutō. Is he also an Cheng-ge now? Senju Cheng asked. No, I don't know. Sparks can't sense its level. It's possible that it has gone much further than me on the evolution path of Cheng-ges. It's possible that it has already become vastoed. Sparks replied. Upon hearing this answer, Senju Cheng, whose main body was in the center of Senbon Bancho world birth, had his eyes slightly lowered and flashed. Vastoed. That is the highest level above the Great Hollow. It no longer has the curse that it must devour all the time or it will degenerate. It is truly a ruler or king-like existence at the top of the entire Huko-mundo. In theory, the Mao Spiritual Academy teaches that vastoed is a terrifying existence above the captain level. Just relying on the spiritual pressure that explodes is enough to kill hundreds of thousands of humans on the spot. Of course, that is just a theory. Just like there is a gap between captains, a group of hollowed-out captains are just playthings in front of Unohana Retsu, and Ayaka Warabu is killed instantly. But even so, it is enough to show the high level of vastoed. Moreover, the most feared thing about a mad scientist like Zanpakutō was never his spiritual pressure, but the endless various methods. After a moment, the wooden puppet asked again. So, your body became like this is also the work of Zanpakutō? Sparks felt the dangerous breath in the tone of the wooden puppet and explained quickly. No, Sparks is pure natural and has never been transformed by Zanpakutō. Otherwise, Sparks would not dare to say the name of Zanpakutō. I see, the wooden puppet's tone changed again and said. I don't believe it, unless you peel off the shell and let me see your inside to confirm it. See if you have grown up healthy and normal for an Cheng-ge, and whether you have experienced artificial distortion and transformation. Chapter 194. Surname Lezan, name Dafo. No, don't, let me see. Let Spanos go, this alone won't work. I told you to let me see, you don't want to die now, do you? For a moment, when Makoto Senju pressed Spanos with his middle finger, both sides seemed to be sticking to their bottom line. Makoto Senju was not worried that the situation at this moment would be known by other Shinigami and cause unnecessary misunderstandings. The Shinigami present had been protected by Makoto Senju inside Senbon world birth. As for the current Seireitei, it is not the Seireitei 100 years later, and the Technology Development Bureau is not the Technology Development Bureau that can easily monitor the number changes of the entire real world in the future. The current Technology Development Bureau has just started, and then Urahara Kisuke was tacitly carried away from the Seireitei by Aizen Sasuke and Makoto Senju. This has led to the current chaos within the Technology Development Bureau, and there has not been much development, let alone monitoring the real world. The reason why Kachiki Sojin's request for help could be transmitted back to the Jingling Court was entirely due to the communication function of the Hell Butterfly. And under the relentless pressure of Senju Makoto, especially with the huge middle finger that seemed to be able to kill him at any time, Spanos could only choose to peel off the outside bit by bit. Soon, inside the abdomen of Spanos, which was almost humanoid on the surface, its true appearance was revealed. The whole body was white, and the surface was covered with a shell that did not look hard at all. There was a small mask on the top of the head, and the Huko-mundo was in the middle of its body. At first glance, Spanos looked like a harmless insect, but the mouthful of sharp teeth made it more ferocious. It's a bit ugly. As a pure doctor, Senju Makoto's good character made him never lie easily in front of patients. The plain tone made Spanos' young heart suffer a huge critical damage on the basis of humiliation. In Huko-mundo, since the level of Cheng-ge needs to fight for a long time to ensure that they do not degenerate, they generally regard bigness, ferocity as beauty, and the beauty above this is undoubtedly the beauty of being close to human form. This is not only because the hollows are born from human souls and have the same instinctive pursuit, but more importantly, vastoed almost always maintains a close to human form. However, Spanos, who looks like a worm, is undoubtedly not related to either side, so the appearance of maintaining a false limb is almost completely the same as that of a human. However, before Spanos' eyes flashed with murderous light because of Senju Makoto's words, he swore a 30-year war that he would sooner or later transform into a giant kum to destroy the Soul Society. Then, 5 wooden arms emerged from the tip of the middle finger hanging above Spanos, and they held Spanos from all directions and examined him. Break it open here, counted there, just as Spano's eyes were dazed and he felt that he had fallen into the hands of a being more terrifying than Seireitei, and his body would never return to its former state. Ah! Spanos felt a pain in his buttocks, and instinctively made a sharp sound, angrily. Death, what do you want to do? However, Senju Cheng's voice was a little more gentle and patient than before. Don't be so impatient, it's just a tube of buttocks needles. This is also a necessary process for the inspection to prevent your body from being transformed by Seireitei. Then, a wooden syringe was raised in front of Spano's eyes, and then all the wood numbs retracted back into the giant middle finger. Of course, the wood composed of ordinary spirit particles, even if Senju Cheng now has a deep understanding of how ordinary spirit particles are arranged and structured under superposition density. But obviously there is no way to break through the shell of an nunchuckers with a tiny wooden needle, so the wooden syringe is actually formed by Senju Cheng's left-hand spirit particles. The purpose is to leave a seed in Spano's body. No matter what, Spanos is in a Cheng-ge, with the same level as the captain level Shinigami. And with Spanos' character, Senju Cheng believes that its life in Hukomundo should be relatively long, and it is completely worth consuming a forest seed. Compared with killing this of Cheng-ge, which is not a big deal for Hukomundo, Senju Cheng has undoubtedly chosen a way to make better use of Spanos' surplus value. Spanos looked at Senju Cheng's actions, but asked in confusion. What do you mean? It's not a big problem. Your body is still healthy. At least according to the aesthetics of the insect world, it's already good. After a pause, Senju Cheng continued gently. Next, as long as you promise not to invade the real world and soul society, I will let you return to Hukomundo. How about it? Spanos. Spanos looked at the wooden doll in front of him with an expressionless face in disbelief and asked. Are you serious? I'm a hollow, why don't you kill me? In fact, Spanos had already fallen into despair when he was subdued by Senju Cheng. He had been stalling time with Senju Cheng, hoping for a chance to escape. However, Spanos never expected that in the end, the god of death in front of him would let him go. Why should I kill you? Isn't the struggle and killing of all things enough? Must the world always run in the cycle of killing and death? The voice of the wooden puppet was so stiff, but the power of the words made Spanos feel as if he had some kind of glory. Killing for survival and to fill one's stomach is understandable after all. But killing one life after another based on a simple belief and slogan is not justice, but cruelty. And I just want to save lost and painful lives. Yes, maybe in the eyes of the death gods, the evil void devours one soul after another. But in the eyes of the void, they devour souls just like humans eat meat, following the necessary physiological instinct. What about the death gods? Obviously, they don't need to kill the void to maintain themselves, but the death gods always shout cheap slogans and continue to kill the void endlessly. Death, Lord Death, can you tell me your name? Spanos asked with a trembling voice. Me? The wooden puppet was silent for a few breaths, and then slowly made a sound. My surname is Lazan, and my name is Adfo. Chapter 195. Mercy at Home. Real name, of course, it is impossible to tell Synopsis. Although there is no possibility of any friendly visit between Soul Society and Hukomundo, and then accidentally reveal that Senju Cheng deliberately let go of an Cheng-ge. Of course, even if Synopsis tells it, Seireitei will not believe the testimony of a hollow. However, Senju Cheng needs to consider being noticed by Seireitei, and he must be careful that Aizen Sosok will secretly control Hukomundo in the future and accidentally learn the name of Senju Cheng from Synopsis. Therefore, a vest is still very necessary, and how effective it is. And Spanos has no doubt about this name. Master Daibutsu, Synopsis swears that he will never invade the real world and soul society in the future. Even if he is forced to eat souls in order to survive, he must strictly follow the teachings of Master Daibutsu and do more compassionate things. Listening to Spanos' words, Senju Cheng was stunned and summarized for Spanos. Spanos, you have a very high level of understanding. This is the soul passes through the intestines, but remains in the heart of the Buddha. Yes, Lord Buddha is right, and in order to avoid causing too much killing, Synopsis has already thought about it. Synopsis seemed to have a flash of inspiration and started talking. After I return to Hukomundo, I will find a newly promoted Cheng-ge as soon as possible, and then find a way to sneak attack and cripple its limbs, but try not to hurt its life. Senju Cheng heard this, and an absurd idea flashed through his mind. This Cheng-ge won't really have any compassionate thoughts. Of course, maybe this is not impossible, but the probability is extremely small. Because in a sense, the so-called hollow is a consciousness center formed by some paranoid and extreme emotions, and most of them are negative emotions. And Synopsis continued. In this case, Spanos will only eat a little every day, and wait until its wounds are healed before eating again, until its soul and spirit are completely collapsed, and then change the target. Senju Cheng. How can this be called a living bodhisattva? He is just a living king of hell, right? It is really compassion opens the door to compassion. Compassion is the best. Sneak attack, Lao Liu, no martial ethics, hiding one's head and showing one's tail, compassion, sustainable development. Synopsis really collected all the above words. However, the suffering of the residents of Hutomundo has nothing to do with me, the Levant giant Buddha. Senju Cheng has nothing to say except to encourage and appreciate Synopsis's ideas. And Synopsis, who feels that his ideological awareness is improved by several levels, also opened the black cavity with gratitude to Senju Cheng, and prepared to leave the world. Wait, Senju Cheng suddenly remembered something, turned his head and looked at the Senro tree world birth which was basically intact, and said, Synopsis, I'll have to trouble you to bombard the forest with your maximum power of void flash. Ah? Synopsis looked at the wooden doll in confusion. Senju Cheng explained. Perhaps I can understand the hollow, but that doesn't mean the other Shinigami can accept this idea, so we have to make it look like you were forced to retreat after bombarding it. Suddenly, Synopsis, who was also a senior sixth master, understood the logic. I understand, Lord Buddha, then please pay attention to avoid it. Synopsis seemed to agree with some difficulty. Then, Synopsis once again condensed the most powerful void flash, and the red light flashed and exploded, boom. As the strongest attack of a great hollow equivalent to a captain-level Shinigami, coupled with Senju Cheng's intentional non-resistance and cooperation, it destroyed about one-third of the giant trees like a rotten tree. Then, Synopsis bowed in the direction of the forest, and his figure quickly disappeared into the closed black cavity. As for the center of all things in the world birth of the tree realm, Senju Cheng seemed to have suffered great damage at the moment when Synopsis's void flash exploded, and he cried out in pain. Mr. Cheng. Vice Captain Senju, are you okay? Damn it, let's go fight that void. For a while, voices of concern and anger continued to mix, until Senju Cheng's voice, which seemed to be extremely weak, sounded. No, it's okay, I blocked it. This is a full-strength attack that he has been accumulating for a long time. After this attack, the void should also understand that it cannot be violated, I can still hold on. Next, follow-up support should arrive soon. The weak voice spoke such gentle and firm words that almost made the death gods present burst into tears. But, damn it, if the such a case really breaks through, I must protect Vice Captain Senju no matter what. It's okay, even if I'm devoured by the hollow first, I must be ahead of Vice Captain Senju. What a pity, I'm a man, otherwise, by the way, Vice Captain Senju, I have a daughter who was just born 18 years ago. Cheng Senju was able to hold back after hearing the previous ones, but the last sentence said by an unknown god of death almost broke Cheng Senju's acting skills on the spot. 18 years old in Soul Society is more than half the age of humans. No, I'm not good at breastfeeding. If you need to take care of the baby, I'll ask other departments to take care of it for you. Cheng Senju answered weakly. Only Kachiki Sojin, who was seriously injured and could only sit in a corner leaning against a huge tree, panting heavily, while reducing consumption as much as possible and preparing to release his last bankai at any time, had a strange feeling. Love can be transferred, right? I'm your vice captain, right? And I am seriously injured. Is there no one in the entire squad who can use the return to relieve my pain? Even that rebellious son is the same. Of course, these are just some of Kachiki Sojin's inner complaints. Kachiki Sojin's character and pride will never allow him to be really jealous of the benefactor who risks his life to save him. On the contrary, Kachiki Sojin has extraordinary admiration and gratitude for Senju Cheng in his heart. At this moment, with a gate from the Seireitei opening in the sky not far away, an astonishing spiritual pressure belonging to the captain-level Shinigami spread rapidly like a storm, as if intending to deter something. The next moment, Kakushansui, who had released his zanpakutō in advance and had a ruddy face with lip marks or alcohol on his cheeks, led the rescue team and a group of elite Shinigami from the 8th squad to appear. His power is really eye-catching. However, where's such a case? P.S. It's the end of the month, I'm asking for a monthly ticket in a low voice. Chapter 196 Afterwards. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Under the command of Rizuki, the members of the rescue team were busy treating the injuries of the 6th Division Shinigami. In particular, Kachiki Sojin's condition was extremely bad. Rizuki and 3 other elite doctors worked together to stabilize Kachiki Sojin's condition temporarily. Standing aside and watching, Kakushansui looked at Kachiki Sojin, who was almost completely shrouded in kido, and asked with some guilt and shame, "How is it?" If Kachiki Sojin really got into trouble, Kakushansui, who came late to support, could not escape the blame. Not optimistic, Vice Captain Kachiki has lost more than 50% of his blood, his kidneys and liver have serious injuries, his right arm is broken off the root, and the broken arm has been swallowed by a chuckers. Rizuki, who was bending down to treat Kachiki Sojin, said in a somewhat solemn tone, "If Makatao hadn't stopped the bleeding to a considerable extent in advance, I'm afraid that Vice Captain Kachiki would have died long ago. But even so, Vice Captain Kachiki must repair his spirit as soon as possible." Kakushansui urged subconsciously. "Then hurry up and repair his spirit." "We can't do it. It's extremely difficult to repair the spirit of a captain-level Shinigami. There are only a few people in the 4th Division who can do this. Only Makatao has this ability, but Makatao's condition is also very bad." At this point, Iokiriza said in a serious tone, "Now we can only stabilize Vice Captain Kachiki's injuries while taking Vice Captain Kachiki back to the Seireitei as soon as possible to be treated by Captain Unohana. I hope we can make it in time." Suddenly, Kakushansui's brows were tightly knitted together. In the field of kido, Kakushansui can't say that he knows nothing, but it is obvious that he can't help at all. Just going through the damge by itself has certain risks, and the speed of time in that damge is as much as 2,000 times different from the outside world. Even if the Seireitei had prepared for treatment at the same time, if an unexpected situation such as Kudo occurred in the damge, the young master of the Kachiki family would probably die in the damge. The death of the vice captain of the 6th Division would undoubtedly make the situation even worse for the Gotti 13th Division, which was already in a difficult situation. Just when Kakushansui felt the great responsibility and involvement, and was hesitant to make a decision, Kachiki Byakuya, who looked still young but seemed to have matured a lot overnight, spoke with a firm voice. "Send him back to the Seireitei. Seniors of the 4th Division, please send my father back to the Seireitei as soon as possible. The risk will be borne by Kachiki Byakuya." With Kachiki Byakuya's promise, the rescue team got busy without any hesitation, preparing a stretcher and fixing Kachiki Sojin with kitten. 2 officers of the 8th Division who were good at shunpo carried the stretcher, and 2 members of the rescue team who were also relatively good at shunpo followed and stabilized Kachiki Sojin's injuries throughout the process. In order to avoid any unexpected situations, Kakushansui was also prepared to escort Kachiki Sojin through the damge and return to the Seireitei. Kachiki Byakuya watched Kachiki Sojin enter the direction of the gate, and decided to stay in the real world for the time being. In the case of Kachiki Sojin being seriously injured, Kachiki Byakuya, as the heir of the Kachiki family, had the responsibility and obligation to take all the members of the 6th Division back to the Seireitei. Senju Makatao, who was arranged by his subordinates to lie down and recuperate, saw Kachiki Byakuya's reaction throughout the process and clearly felt Kachiki Byakuya's growth. Kachiki Sojin's injury did look quite serious, but with Senju Makatao's advanced treatment, the possibility of worsening in a short period of time was minimal. In addition, Senju Makatao was still pretending to be in a weak and overdrawn state, so he simply let the rescue team send Kachiki Sojin back to the Seireitei for treatment. However, Kachiki Sojin's right arm had been swallowed and digested by Spangos. With conventional kido and medical skills, I'm afraid that even Unohana teacher would not be able to recover. In other words, after losing his right arm, Kachiki Sojin is probably no longer suitable to be the vice captain of the 6th Division. Then, Makatao Senju forced himself to get up with his somewhat weak body, and looked around at all the rescue teams that were treating the injuries of the members of the 6th Division. It has to be said that even though that 4th Division is seriously understaffed, the level and quality of the doctors in the rescue team are still quite good. Makatao Senju's behavior of being so weak that he was overdrawn, but still extremely dedicated, also deeply touched the Shinigami present. Vice Captain Senju himself is obviously overdrawn, but despite this, he is still worried about his injured colleagues. "Vice Captain Senju, you should take a rest. We can take care of these injuries." That's right, Vice Captain Senju, we didn't. Yes, it hurts Makao. You are also a patient now. How can you get up so easily? Finally, Aokiriza came up and tried to force Makao Senju to shut down the phone, and even pressed Makao Senju's head on her thigh without saying anything, and said with a worried tone, Makao, the rest are not seriously injured. You should take good care of yourself. You can't try to take everything on your shoulders and carry the entire 4th Division forward. But Makao must not be so impulsive next time. That's your case, No, all my colleagues in the 4th Division will be worried about Makao. Finally, Makao Senju couldn't hear Aokiriza's subtle voice clearly. However, Makao Senju felt the softness under his head and inexplicably felt a sense of satisfaction and peace of mind. Knee pillow, it's really great. Riza usually looks petite and cute. But I didn't expect her thighs to be so soft and elastic, perhaps because it was his first experience. Senju Makao, who was already a little tired, fell asleep without realizing it. When Senju Makao woke up again, it was already close to noon the next day in the real world. And Aokiriza didn't show any abnormality in front of Senju Makao, as if the knee pillow thing last night didn't happen at all. This made Senju Makao's eyes subconsciously look towards the position of Aokiriza's legs, making Aokiriza feel inexplicably a little weak in her legs. Last night, Aokiriza was also looking at the pale and weak Makao, and for some reason her heart softened and warmed, so she did such an impolite thing, hoping that Makao could rest better in such a harsh environment in the real world. Fortunately, Senju Makao quickly retracted his gaze, then pushed his glasses and asked, "What's the situation?" Chapter 197 Intermediate Nobles. Yes, Aokiriza replied with a serious tone. The 12 injured members of the 6th Division have completed treatment, and the bodies of 18 members of the 6th Division have been collected. In addition, the 6th Division Vice Captain Kuchiki Sojin has been treated by Captain Unohana in the Seireitei and is completely out of danger. Senju Makao nodded and took Aokiriza to inspect the wounded in the temporary medical camp. It can be said that they were treated warmly by the wounded. Because some of the wounded were temporarily not suitable for movement, this team composed of the 4th Division, the 6th Division and the 8th Division will stay in the real world for a few days. Then, Senju Makao took Aokiriza for a walk nearby. After the battle last night, even if the death gods intentionally did not affect humans, it still caused the area within a radius of 500 meters to be ravaged by monsters, and traces that were difficult to explain by scientific common sense appeared everywhere. Therefore, although the human government in the real world has blocked this area and explained to the public that it was a very small meteor group falling, no one was injured or killed. But the public obviously did not believe such outrageous statements, resulting in a large number of strong onlookers around. Sure enough, there is a monster. What monster? Ultraman cannot exist, this should be an urban legend. I also think it should be an urban legend, Hachisha lady fighting Shuten Doji. Nonsense, it must be a fight between Tengu and Bone Woman. Since ordinary humans do not have enough spiritual power, they cannot see the god of death and the hollow at all. So even if Senju Makao walked past them with Aokiriza, no human could observe the existence of Senju Makao and Aokiriza. On the contrary, Senju Makao was very confused when he heard the seemingly reasonable speculations among humans. However, the Technology Development Bureau has not yet developed a series of things such as memory erasers, so the traces of the battle between the god of death and the hollow in the real world have always been easily regarded by humans as the existence of monsters, urban legends, etc. Soon, Senju Makao discovered that the historical process of the real world was completely different from that of the previous life, but the development of science and technology has gradually brought about many things that Senju Makao is familiar with. After a tour, Senju Makao was very interested, and even a little envious of Shifu Yorishi and his group who were enjoying a good life in the human world. Due to the rigidity of the Seireitei, the development of various entertainments is naturally incomparable to the human world. Afterwards, Senju Makao took Aokiriza to visit the hospital in the human world. It must be said that in terms of the development of uniforms, the human world is always full of progress and artistry. After a tour, Senju Makao expressed different opinions and comments on the various systems of the human world hospital, and finally said with admiration, especially their medical uniforms, which are quite good, compared with the black death suits. The simple white uniforms are not too heavy in the eyes of patients, and they also give people a sense of cleanliness and purity. This is a part that the 4th Division is very worthy of learning and introducing. As doctors, we cannot be complacent and must absorb new changes in a timely manner. Aokiriza nodded repeatedly while taking out a small notebook to take notes, preparing to organize it as a future development outline for the 4th Division. In the following days, whenever Senju Makoto had time, he would take Aokiriza to visit around in the real world, and from time to time he would also perform soul burial for wandering souls to complete some of the achievements of the Death God. However, soon, Senju Makoto received an order from the Jingling Court, requiring him to lead all the Death Gods back to the Jingling Court. In this regard, Senju Makoto couldn't help but feel a little regretful and reluctant. When stepping into the gate of the world, Senju Makoto did not forget to look back at the prosperous real world behind him. If there is a chance, I will prepare my artificial body and have fun in the real world, Makoto Senju said silently, and then he was the first to enter the gate of the world, leading this team of death gods through the broken world and returning to the Seireitei. As Makoto Senju returned to the Seireitei, there was already a messenger from the 1st Division waiting for him. Vice Captain Senju, please follow me to the 1st Division. Many captains are waiting for you. Makoto Senju was a little surprised. After all, Kachiki Sojin had been sent back to the Seireitei a long time ago. Even if the Seireitei wanted to investigate something, they should have known the answer from Kachiki Sojin. However, considering Kachiki Sojin's identity and the sensitive period, it might not be strange to need to confirm multiple times. After Makoto Senju arrived at the meeting room of the 1st Division, the person standing at the top was undoubtedly Captain General Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, and below him were many captains including Yukita Jashiro, but Kinpachi Zaraki was still not there. This luxurious lineup made Makoto Senju a little confused. Among them, Makoto Senju paused instinctively when he looked at Unohana Retsu, and Unohana Retsu responded with a gentle look that made Makoto Senju feel at ease. Then, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni opened his eyes that seemed to have just been dozing off, and spoke majestically. Vice Captain Senju of the 4th Division, please tell the truth about your experience in the real world. Under the heavy and majestic gaze of Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, Makoto Senju calmed down and then repeated it in a calm and steady tone. Many of the processes had little to do with Makoto Senju, who was only providing wartime treatment and a spectator on a large scale, so there was no need for Makoto Senju to lie. Only in the short period of time after using Shinigami Bangtree World Birth, Makoto Senju only vaguely stated that he barely blocked it, and Ochikazo sensed that Captain Kiku was about to arrive, so he was forced to retreat. Until the end, when they heard that Senju Makoto's spiritual power was overdrawn after using his ability and he fell into a weak state, the captains present did not say anything. Only Unohana Retsu showed a playful and gentle look to Senju Makoto, and seemed to give Senju Makoto a subtle look. After all, in the entire GOTY 13, only Unohana Retsu knew the strengths and weaknesses of most of Senju Makoto's abilities very well, especially the fact that Senju Makoto would not fall into weakness when using word-based abilities for attack and defense. Then, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni glanced at the captain of the 6th Division, Kachiki Jinrin, who nodded slightly. Bang! The next moment, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni knocked the cane in his hand heavily on the floor and said majestically. In view of the outstanding performance of the vice captain of the 4th Division, Senju Makoto, and the correct temporary decision, he saved the lives of more than 10 6th Division Shinigami, and was awarded the status of intermediate noble as a reward. Chapter 198. You won't feel resentment towards the teacher, right? Even when Senju Makoto walked out of the meeting room, he still felt extremely surprised. This is a mid-level noble? Senju Makoto's expression was a little surprised. Although mid-level noble seems quite ordinary, you have to know that Seireitei's family has joined the secret mobile team for generations to serve the Shifen Yuan family, and they are only the lowest level lower-level nobles. Aokiriza is a mid-level noble, but that is because the Aoki family has served as the chief officer of the 4th Division and the squad leader of a certain rescue team for generations, thus maintaining the status of a mid-level noble. And Senju Makoto was directly awarded the status of mid-level noble, which can be said to be a step up. It can be said that even if Senju Makoto is old in the future or can't work in the 4th Division anymore, he can retire peacefully as a noble and still be a member of the ruling class of the Seireitei. Of course, the current situation of Senju Makoto and Aokiriza is somewhat similar. In fact, there is only one person left in the entire noble group. If you really want to consolidate your noble status, then in addition to other important factors, the most important thing is to expand as soon as possible. Senju Makoto thought about it carefully and soon understood that it was not so much a reward from Captain Yamamoto as a thank you gift from the Kachiki family. Although Senju Cheng had not deliberately pursued the status of aristocracy in the past, but thinking of the various privileges that aristocrats had, it seems not bad. In this way, I can place range IQ in the Seireitei as a maid in a while. Just when Senju Cheng was about to use the power of the aristocrats to do something really useful in the future, a gentle but cold voice came into Senju Cheng's ears. Range IQ? This girl's name is pretty nice. Senju Cheng's eyes shrank slightly, and he turned his head and was surprised to find that Yunohana had ended the meeting and stood behind him. Yunohana smile was still so gentle and charming as looking at Senju Cheng. However, Senju Cheng felt a kind of terrifying murderous light from the slits of Yunohana eyes. Senju Cheng shuddered instinctively and explained repeatedly. No, Yunohana-sensei, you misunderstood. Range IQ is a little lily who is much younger than Seireitei. Oh. It would be fine if Seireitei was not mentioned. As soon as Seireitei was mentioned, Yunohana-retsu's smile began to slowly fade. The zanpakutō, which was originally held casually with both hands, slowly moved his right hand towards the hilt and said, "Makoto, have you developed such a bad interest just after becoming a noble? It turns out that you can't indulge yourself, otherwise Makoto might grow up crooked." After a pause, Yunohana put one hand completely on the hilt and said gently, "Makoto, do you need the teacher to help you fix it a little?" No, teacher," Senju said, waving his hands in front of his chest. "Teacher, have you forgotten? Range IQ should have seen it too. It's the little lily with orange hair who lost part of her soul in Cheng-ge. Her." Yunohana raised his eyebrows slightly, as if he had some impression. Then, Senju briefly explained the situation about Matsumoto Range IQ. Of course, Senju only said that he met Matsumoto Range IQ again in Cheng-ge by accident, and learned that she was looking for Ichiro-jin, so he took pity on her and took care of her a little. The next moment, Senju felt that the danger from Yunohana completely disappeared, and the gentle and elegant smile seemed to be just an illusion of Senju. "I see, Makoto is still so gentle and kind." "Of course, I'm the disciple of Yunohana teacher," Senju answered obediently. Makoto started again, always able to praise from different angles. "If you praise the teacher like this, the teacher will not be particularly happy." Yunohana took Senju back to the 4th Division's barracks, and the end of his voice rose slightly as he spoke. "Yunohana teacher, you're wronging me." Senju seemed to be quite helpless and aggrieved. "How can I be considered praising the teacher? I'd just like to say a few more truthful words in front of the teacher. The only thing I can't do is to do those things that are disrespectful to the teacher and the ancestors." "Really?" Yunohana answered with a gentle smile, which seemed to have a hint of something, which made Senju a little confused. Then, Yunohana didn't say anything else, but took Senju directly to the office of the vice-captain of the 4th Squad dormitory. Suddenly, Senju inexplicably had a bad premonition. The next moment, a flash of inspiration flashed in Senju mind, and he completely remembered something he had missed. No, could it be that I was discovered? Senju suddenly felt that his legs were as if they were filled with lead. Facing the office door that was so close in front of him, he couldn't lift his feet at all. "Makoto, aren't you coming in?" As Yunohana seemingly gentle voice sounded, Senju gritted his teeth and strode in with the courage to sacrifice himself for the sake of benevolence. As Makoto Senju approached Yunohana who was already sitting in the office chair, he saw the book in front of Yunohana clearly, and he felt his eyes go dark, and his whole body was shaky. That book was Makoto Senju's drawing book. To be more precise, it was the picture book that Makoto Senju used to study various uniforms in his spare time in the past few months. More importantly, in order to be able to compare the beauty intuitively, every improved version of the uniform that Makoto Senju thought of was drawn with Yunohana as the model, and the last time, when Makoto Senju was about to make the final draft, the hell butterfly appeared to deliver an urgent message. This made Makoto Senju, who was worried about the Kuchiki father and son, forget to hide the picture book tightly when he set off urgently, and put it in the drawer casually. Now, Makoto Senju has been happily staying in the real world for several days. It is obvious that Yunohana should have come to this office to handle team affairs and accidentally discovered this picture book. At this moment, Senju felt a sense of guilt and social death for being discovered by the teacher as a student, secretly holding the teacher's photo, and stammered. "Teacher, please listen to my explanation, okay? Retsu said in a gentle and calm tone. Makotao can start to quibble now. If you can't satisfy me, Makotao will not have any resentment towards the teacher, right? Senju Makotao. Immediately, Senju Makotao's brain started to work like crazy, and then he spoke sincerely. First of all, in my eyes, the teacher is undoubtedly the most beautiful woman in Soul Society, chapter 199 full of filial piety. Most beautiful? Retsu asked as if he had heard something interesting. Of course, Sensei is definitely the most beautiful female Shinigami in the entire Soul Society. That's why the Seireitei has not established a ranking of the most beautiful female Shinigami, otherwise the teacher would definitely be the leader, Senju Makotao answered sincerely, and a flash of inspiration came to his mind, and he said. That's why when I tried to conceive the medical uniforms of the 4th Division, I always unconsciously substituted the image of the teacher into it. Retsu asked with a smile. So, you still blame me? No, how can you blame Sensei? Sensei has such a temperament and appearance, and she has no choice. Senju Makotao expressed his understanding. Hearing this, even Retsu couldn't help but feel a little angry. In short, this guy Makotao is a non-stick pan. I have blasphemed the teacher so much, and created so many strange images and those strange actions based on the teacher without authorization, and in the end I can only blame myself. That is to say, now Retsu has truly accepted Senju Makotao from the bottom of his heart and regarded him as an important person. Otherwise, if the time goes back a little bit to before the birthday party, Retsu might have considered the issue of retraining a disciple number. In fact, Senju Makotao, who was observing the changes in Retsu's expression with every word he said, had discovered that Retsu did not seem to be as angry as he imagined. In an instant, a bold idea slowly emerged in Senju Makotao's mind. Maybe this is a good time for a CPU? Or a KFC teacher. And teacher, in fact, these images and movements above are a kind of artistic expression method passed down from the present world, Senju Makotao said carefully. For example, teacher, you see this action is called duck sitting. Usually, you see the teacher kneeling for a long time. Although it looks dignified and elegant, it is not very friendly to the knees and ankles after all. Duck sitting is different. It can make the force relatively evenly distributed below. Teacher can experience it when there are no outsiders in the courtyard, and there is no need to worry about being rude. Retsu glanced at Senju Makotao, and then looked at one of the pages in the album that was opened. Duck sitting. In the album, it was the image of Retsu wearing a white doctor's robe that just covered a part of the thigh, and then sitting in a cute and attractive posture called duck sitting by Senju Makotao. Therefore, how to put that posture can be said to be clear at a glance. Retsu looked at it for a few times, and then he seemed to be a little uncertain and asked. So, this is all Makotao's full of filial piety? Of course, my filial piety, the sun can witness it. Senju Makotao answered without any hesitation or confusion. Then, Retsu turned the album to the next page and asked with a half-smile in his eyes. What about this impolite posture? Senju Makotao looked at the album, and it was a very common and normal action of holding the arms together and holding the hands on the lower abdomen. However, since Senju Makotao is a realist, but Retsu is undoubtedly an exaggerator, this led to a huge conflict and squeeze between the two in the album. Ahem, this, that. Senju Makotao's eyes wandered around, and he stuttered. Because this also takes into account the mobility of the uniform, and considering that the teacher may need to lower his head to treat below, we need to study whether it will cause obstacles or something like that. Don't worry, I will never treat with this action. Retsu said in a calm tone. Ah? Why? Senju Makotao asked subconsciously. Because there will be a visual obstruction. Senju Makotao. Suddenly, Senju Makotao also realized this problem. It's just that Senju Makotao has never had this trouble in the past, so he really ignored this possibility. Retsu said with a smile. But it seems that Cheng knows the teacher's figure very well, and the proportions are exactly right. Senju Cheng did not dare to answer this question. But in fact, Senju Cheng knew a lot about Retsu. Especially for a doctor like Senju Cheng who is proficient in medical skills and has studied female spirits, after holding the child 2 or 3 times, he still couldn't get accurate data. It can only be said that Senju Cheng is not good at learning. This is like those experienced electricians who have been working for decades. If they can tell whether a line has electricity or not, just by reaching out and touching it, how can they tell? Then, Unohana pointed out several actions in the picture album in a row, and Senju Cheng explained them all with a very decent excuse with his righteousness and innocence. So it seems that Cheng is really public-spirited and filial. After a pause, Unohana did not give Senju Cheng a chance to interrupt, and spoke directly. Then Makoto-kun must have prepared the uniforms, right? Take them out and try them out. Suddenly, Makoto Senju felt his heartbeat quicken a little. Unohana-sensei, was he so easily convinced? Could it be that Unohana-sensei is still the simple type who is easily fooled in some aspects? However, on the surface, Makoto Senju still looked calm and kind, and then quickly took out several sets of trial uniforms that he had prepared in advance. Why are they trial uniforms? Of course, these uniforms are relatively not suitable for large-scale promotion within the 4th Division, but they can be used for private trials. However, facing Makoto Senju's somewhat burning gaze, Unohana leisurely poured himself a cup of tea, without any intention of reaching out to take the uniforms, but instead spoke. Makoto, what are you waiting for? Give it a try. Huh. Suddenly, Makoto Senju's mind was a little stuck, and he suddenly thought of a possibility, pointed his finger at himself, and asked. Unohana teacher, you want me to try? What else? Unohana said with a smile in her gentle eyes. As the captain, I also need to consider whether the new uniform is suitable for the male members of the team, so it's just right for Makoto to try it. Senju Makoto. By the way, Unohana raised the picture book in his hand and said, Makoto, I don't quite understand these postures and movements, so I'd like to trouble Makoto to demonstrate them to the teacher in person. Makoto is a filial son, so he won't refuse the teacher, right? 040. Senju Makoto. Teacher, now I admit that I lusted after your body. I was wrong. Is it too late for you to forgive me? Chapter 200 I am Shimusha and hell if just putting on the doctor's uniform specially made for Unohana had given Makoto Senju a social suicide impulse, then asking Makoto Senju to do the poses and movements in the picture book. Makoto Senju was very clear about the poses and movements in the picture book. If Unohana did them, it would be a violation, but if Makoto Senju did them, it would definitely be a disease. Teacher, if you weren't so sinister, we could still have a pure master-disciple relationship, Makoto Senju said in his heart with tears in his eyes, hoping to see a joke in Unohana expression. However, Unohana smiling eyes looked like he was going to commit a crime against Makoto Senju. The next moment, Makoto Senju disappeared almost instantly and rushed towards the direction of the office door. However, just as Makoto Senju's hand was about to touch the door, Unohana gentle and elegant figure appeared in front of Makoto Senju, who was close at hand. Want to run? Makoto. Unohana gentle voice sounded. Just when he was about to teach his increasingly unqualified disciple a lesson, Unohana obviously forgot one thing. That is, at this distance, not every god of death can completely stop the speed instantly. Bang. The next moment, Senju Makoto completely collided with Unohana and even the huge inertia caused Senju Makoto and Unohana to roll and break the door. In the end, Senju Makoto and Unohana rolled several times in the corridor before they completely stopped. The sound coming from the office of the respected Vice Captain Senju instantly attracted a lot of attention from the surrounding 4th Division members, who rushed out to try to confirm Senju Makoto's condition. What's that noise? The source of the noise is in Vice Captain Senju's office. Hurry, 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 is it another enemy attack? Damn it, Vice Captain Senju can't get into trouble again. For a moment, amid the hurried footsteps and chatter, Unohana who was pressed to the floor by Senju Makoto, glared at Senju Makoto fiercely, as if he was going to cut Senju Makoto into pieces. Senju Makoto was also stunned. He didn't expect the situation to turn out like this, and he kept explaining. Old teacher, I didn't mean it. I. Still not letting go? Unohana said in a hurried voice. Although Senju Makoto's office was divided into an independent area, it was not far from the surrounding 4th Division Shinigami. Those 4th Division Shinigami who came to confirm the situation would undoubtedly arrive soon. Once the rest of the 4th Division Shinigami saw their captain and vice captain rolling on the floor in the corridor in broad daylight, would Unohana still have dignity and face? No, in this situation, whoever sees it will die. Seeing that Unohana-retsu's expression control was almost unable to suppress the fierce light in his eyes, Senju Makoto almost instinctively jumped up. And the moment Senju Makoto let go, Unohana-retsu completely disappeared. The next moment, a large number of Shinigami from the 4th Division who rushed over with their zanpakutō appeared in front of Senju Makoto, looking around vigilantly and asking anxiously, "Vice Captain Senju, are you okay?" There seemed to be a sound of conflict just now. Is it the enemy? It must be said that after experiencing the holoification incident, although the 4th Division seemed to be completely back on track, there was still a shadow about something. And Senju Makoto naturally did not dare to say that the sound collided with Captain Unohana, and instead said that it was the sound of an accident that happened when testing the ghost way. Afterwards, Senju Makoto calmed down many Shinigami and went back to work, and also asked Kotetsuya to prepare tools and other things, ready to personally repair the door that was hit. This time, Senju Makoto has decided to lock the office to prevent certain accidents from happening again. However, when Senju Makoto returned to the office again, he couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. Unohana-retsu actually took the picture book away. Does this mean that Unohana-retsu still has not given up the plan to settle the score later? No, it should be said that the last look before Unohana teacher left, this is not really going to cut me up, right? Thinking of this, Senju Makoto shuddered and decided not to return to Unohana courtyard at night in the short term. That's right, I, Senju Makoto, am a man with backbone and bottom line. Before Unohana teacher completely forgives me, I will never go back to Unohana courtyard to live, even if I starve to death, die of cold, or die of illness in the Seireitei, I will never take the initiative to step into Unohana courtyard. That night. So, why did Makoto-kun plan to stay at the Kachika family recently? Kachika Byakuya looked at Senju Makoto in front of him and asked puzzledly. Senju Makoto pushed his glasses up, his expression gentle and elegant, without the slightest sense of embarrassment at noon, but stated, I was awarded the status of intermediate noble at the captain's meeting today, but Byakuya is also very clear that I am from Rukongai, in order not to embarrass myself when necessary, so I plan to learn from the model noble Kachika family, and observe and learn the noble manners, etiquette, and expenses for a period of time. It must be said that Senju Makoto's answer was flawless, and he praised and affirmed the Kachika family invisibly, which made Kachika Byakuya quite benefited. Kachika Byakuya nodded and said, I see, since Makoto-kun is interested in learning, then Makoto-kun can live here with peace of mind. I will also arrange a teacher for Makoto-kun to teach him the manners, etiquette, culture, and so on of the nobility. I won't bother Byakuya with the teacher or anything like that. Just do I need to explain to Captain Jinlang and Vice Captain Sojin about my temporary stay in the Kachika family in person? Senju Makoto asked. Under the cherry tree in the Kachika courtyard, Kachika Byakuya was playing chess seriously with Senju Makoto while speaking seriously. No need, Makoto-kun is a friend and guest of the Kachika family. It is an honor for the Kachika family to have you temporarily stay in the family. Yes, Byakuya is right. At this moment, a somewhat hearty voice sounded. Senju Makoto looked over and saw a young man wearing a star-pulling clamp representing the direct line of the Kachika family and wearing a death suit walking towards him. However, unlike the silver-white winged flower veil that Byakuya Kachika usually wears, this young man is wearing a red winged flower veil. Then, the young man walked in front of Senju Makoto, bowed slightly, and introduced himself. Nice to meet you, Makoto-kun. My name is Kachika Hibiki. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.